It's time for the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games at Southern Utah University in Cedar City. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of a Utah sports tradition at utahsummergames.org. Participate in over 50 sports around the state. Then plan to join the opening ceremonies Friday, June 5th, presented by State Bank of Southern Utah. Register today to participate in the 40th anniversary season of the Larry H. Miller Utah Summer Games.
What is today?
Today is Thursday.
What? Is that today?
Rise and shine.
No.
Gotta get up.
Gotta get up.
Rise and shine.
Wake up! Wake up!
Also, it is Thursday.
Gotta get up.
Rise and shine.
You're not the boss of me!
Okay, the show's about to start. Let's get ready.
It's showtime.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. The NFL draft starts tonight. We're going to get to that. But we begin with Real Salt Lake. They had their chances. A couple of really good ones early on. But Serge Salons could not get the header on frame. And then when they did score, Guillaume Vogi's goal was waved off because Salons was offside. So they squandered those opportunities. Gozo had a good one later, but he sent it wide, and sure enough, Miami scored two late goals in the 82nd, 84th minute, and they win. Messi didn't score. Messi didn't have an assist, but Miami gets the win, and that Luis Suarez goal was spectacular. Here's Pablo Mastroeni after RSL loses at home for the first time this year. Pablo, the first 10 minutes, there were a couple of great chances, a goal called back, and it looked like when RSL couldn't convert on those that Miami got control of the game and really didn't give it up. It seemed like an uphill battle after that.
Yeah, I think in particular the first half, I think we didn't do a good job when we reset with Hoffa. The tempo of the game was really slow, and we ended up stitching ourselves and going long more than we'd like. And I think at halftime we kind of fixed that, and the start of the second half I thought was much better to get on top of the game and create some good chances in the second half. But I think, again, the biggest, and this is what I told the guys, and having played in big games, is you got to take your chances. It's a game of opportunities and converting. You're not going to get 30 chances. I thought their center backs were huge tonight, monsters. The best I've seen them play in all the games I've seen. So on top of that, you've got to be extra sharp, and we just weren't. But I think it was a good test for us, and obviously, having Messi on the field, regardless of what you think, I think it's synonymous with having Pele back in the NASL. The people this guy's been hanging on these players' walls for years, and just being on the same field, I felt like we were a little bit off, but I think a lot of that comes with nerves and the stage that, the type of attention that this team brings. And so, but again, I think if we capitalize on that goal and that goal stood, I think the game changes, right? And then now they have to come out and, but they're an experienced team, and the two goals they scored were world class, and you got, what are you going to do? You got to just, the only way I know to deal with that is to take your chances and change the momentum a bit.
Also, it looked like their midfield did a great job of controlling the ball. That isn't a problem that you've had a lot this year, and this was different. And with their pivots especially, was that because you had to pay more attention to Messi and it created more space, or what was going on there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the way Messi plays and his interpretation of space is the best in the world, and hence the reason why he doesn't have to defend a lot. Because you always have to have essentially two players on that weak side aware of where he's at, and that takes away from getting really good pressure on the ball. In the first half as well, I think our 210s, we weren't defending the weak side half space as much, or well. And I think in the second half when we did that, we were able to win balls and then control the game in the second half a bit more. So, but again, when guys like Messi, DePaul, these guys, they have a +1 factor to their game, and that's what makes them really difficult. Is, again, they don't need a lot of opportunities tonight. They had a few, but when they take their chances, they're a tough team to beat.
There's still a lot of emotion and energy out there. What do you have to say and do to get these guys to bounce back? Because playing a Western opponent, 6-point swing in the standings, all that kind of stuff, that game Sunday with the Galaxy comes fast, and it's obviously important.
Yeah, no, I think, like I've said all year, nothing's changed. The mindset and the character of this group is elite. I think the most important thing is that we recover. Again, not having played those games, we were having those bye weeks, didn't allow us to, I think, really build into the type of fitness that you need to be sharp in multiple games. So I think going now, it's really important that we put a fresher group out there, and so a lot of that's going to be dependent on how the guys recover. Diego Luna today took an IV before the game, took an IV at halftime. He had fever this afternoon, right? And so, and Engel pops out at pregame. So for me, it's making sure that the guys stay healthy, that the guys are fit, so that we can play the way that we'd like. So we'll see how the guys recover tomorrow, and then we'll make decisions for the weekend. But as far as the mentality to bounce back, there's no doubt that we'll be ready for the game. And then, again, it's just taking the lessons that we've learned from our previous 7 games as to how we find a result in LA.
You mentioned kind of the uniqueness of Miami coming to town, the nerves, the attention, all that. Mm-hmm. Could you sense any of that in the crowd tonight, in the atmosphere around the game when there was a big Miami moment? A larger part of the crowd would cheer than any other away team. Yeah. Do you think that influenced the game at all? No,
I don't think it did. I think the guys, when they go to bed the night before the game and they're thinking about, the stage that they're going to play on, I think has more impact. And listen, I played in big games with players that I had on my walls too, and it's a real effect. And sometimes that takes away from what you need to do. I think, like I said, first half we were a bit sloppy with it, and some of the decisions in the final third early on, I think weren't characteristic of the way we've been playing. But again, those all these little factors play into that, and I think in the second half we got the game under control a bit more, created some decent chances, and again, you're not going to, especially with the way the center backs play tonight, is you're not going to get a full chance. You got to turn a half chance into a goal, and I think Serge had a couple at the top of the box. Luna had a couple. So I think all those things we have to be on to be able to be a team that takes a goal basically from nothing on a set piece, but he puts it in the upper corner, and Luis Suarez does the same thing.
You mentioned last game wanting more energy from the guys off the bench. Mm-hmm. What was kind of the strategy tonight with the substitutions, and did you see any more of that tonight?
Well, again, I think the substitution with Juanma was really, again, thinking about moving forward. He's been a bit sick as well, and getting him 30 minutes. Alex has done a great job in his performances, and so again, just kind of looking forward with that decision, and then Vic. Just hopefully, again, he's got a real knack in and around the box, and Sergi's been, first half in particular, he's running the channels a lot, and so just freshening it up from that perspective. And before they scored their second goal, we were going to a bit of a different shape with 3-10s, and Aiden Herzakani coming to the game, as far as the energy was good, but the game they did a great job of killing the game. Right, they just sat around, they took their time, and used some experience to really close out the game. So it was really difficult to kind of gauge, but I think these again, like I said earlier, I think these are really important learning moments. If you want to be great, that's what you're up against. It's not easy. Good is one thing. And we always talk about, the enemy of great is good. So we got to get one game better for the weekend.
Thank you.
Maddie and then Sean.
Hey, Pablo.
Hey, Maddie.
At 0-0, as the match got later and later, which is usually when RSL can impose their will on an opponent at altitude, did you feel like the next goal was going to prove decisive?
Yes. I think... I think that the corner that they had, I think, was it kind of came out of the run of play where I thought we had a lot of good pressure in the second half, and the field tilt was in our favor, and really didn't think, that, and we've been defending set pieces quite well, so that wasn't really a thought of mine. I thought we were going to find the goal. I really did. I think Diego Luna picked up his game in the second half. Morgan was active. Gozo got a bit more involved. And I just felt it was coming. As far as whether or not it was going to be decisive, the problem with Miami when they take the lead is that you can get a lot of the ball in their final third, but then they have the best player in the world, and he's going to unlock teams when you're stretched. And so the idea was to score the first goal and then ask some real questions.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Sean?
Just building off what you were talking about there, it did seem like there were kind of some nerves playing in there from some young players and everything in particular. Is there an advantage to kind of seeing that early in the season so you can kind of go back on the tape and sort of, and I don't know, maybe you take kind of some of those young guys aside now and go, hey, this is how this moment was affecting you and kind of how you can change it?
Yeah, I think when I think experience understands the times that we can control the game with the ball, and I think too often we were going forward when there wasn't anything there, and so when we kept the ball, we oftentimes went back to Hoffa, but it was really slow and lethargic. And against a team like Miami, the secret sauce is tempo. You got to move the ball with tempo, and it was almost like we were allowing them to set up to then break them down, which left us pinned in the wide channels and then Serge running the channels. So for us, I think it's these type of moments not so much for the young players, but as a collective, is understanding that our game is tempo at all. We want tempo, and there's going to be times where Hoffa steps on it, but against a team like Miami, where they're willing to, if you show the impetus to move the ball quick and rotate their defensive shape, you can get to the next layer quicker, right? And I think we were just so slow, and in doing so, they got a lot of success from it. And what ends up happening on the field is when pivots aren't on the ball a lot, they stop moving for the ball, and they're now playing for seconds. And so I think a good learning moment for us is we want to play with tempo, especially when the game is static like that. And I think in the second half we came out and did a really good job of that to get control of the game again. But I think we got to understand that, we might not have a second half where it's 0-0. We've got to do it from the start. So I think it's good learning for all of us. Yeah.
Hey, Pablo. Obviously, we saw Lucas Engel pick up a slight knock. You want to explain exactly what happened and his status in regards to that?
Yeah, he felt something yesterday. Did some testing this morning. He kind of passed that test this morning. But again, I think, and this goes back to the output the group put forth against San Diego, not having had successive games to kind of build up that type of fitness and the muscular fitness that you need to be able to go in a 3-game week. And in warm-ups, the guys came in and let me know that he's out, and so we had a quick move. And but I think Sam Junkwa probably played his best game in an RSL jersey. I thought he was a beast, a monster. His decisions were great with the ball, without the ball. And again, I think this is really credit to the group that we have, that guys are can step in and have those type of performances on a second's notice. So he had a fantastic game.
You mentioned Sam, but obviously having no Lucas and now PQ being injured still, does that scare you in terms of depth at all? Or?
Yeah, no, it's a concern for sure. Kobe Henry's just now trained with us for about a week. He's, and when Dre went down, I thought it was going to be too much time for Kobe's, putting him back into a danger zone as far as minutes are concerned. So it's something that we've talked about right after the game and in lieu of this next game. So it is a concern.
Krishan.
Pablo, what do you hope fans attending their first RSL match or opposing fans tonight learned about your team, especially your own young stars?
Yeah. Well, I would say that, I think for 70, whatever it was, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, the guys competed incredibly well. I think being in the presence of a guy like Messi will take a layman fan into a true soccer fan when you get to experience the environment. I thought the crowd tonight was exceptional, and just waiting to explode on a goal, and I think it's obviously the first time we've been shut out at home, which is usually not the case. And so what I'd say is the guys are going to bounce back. We have some amazing younger players. We have an amazing team, and we have an amazing fan base. And I think when you have all those, it's a spectacle every weekend.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Hey, Pablo. You've talked in the past about this team kind of being a team built to attack, and kind of the idea is you guys are just going to score goals. Tonight, obviously, that didn't happen. Is it kind of, I don't really know how to ask this properly, but is it kind of expected that sometimes the ball just won't roll your way? Is that part of the plan for the team, where sometimes you guys just won't score? Or did something go wrong today?
No, nothing went wrong other than I think at the end of the day, we're all human beings, so we have an identity, we have a way we want to play, and there's moments that at times are a bit big. I think we were, like I said earlier, I think we were a bit nervous in that final third. We weren't decisive as we've been. A lot of that plays into the players that they have. The moment, all the badges everyone's wearing in here, there's a change. It's not like a normal game, and so I would say there's a couple reasons for that, but I think the biggest thing is the opponent that we played. And like I said earlier, their two center backs played the best game I've seen in 2026, and they were monsters. And so what worked for the front three last game had to be double that. And we just weren't as crisp and as sharp in that final third phase as we needed to be to score a goal.
There's Pablo Mastroeni. RSL's back in action Sunday, 5 o'clock at the LA Galaxy, and we'll have that one for you here on 97.5 The Zone. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Evan Brennan, player agent on the NFL draft, and some things you're looking for and some things the NFL is looking for. That's next.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 KSL Sports Zone. Evan Brennan joined us yesterday in the 8 o'clock hour to look ahead to the NFL Draft, which starts tonight in Pittsburgh. Here is Evan Brennan, who'd already been on the phone long before he started chatting with us.
I'll put it this way. It's 8:06, and I've had at least 10 calls from NFL teams this morning alone.
Wow. All right.
What do they want to know?
Well, a lot of them are trying to figure out where some of these guys are going to go. They're starting to target guys that they may want to grab after the draft and undrafted free agency, all kinds of stuff. Find out last-minute, tidbits about guys. It depends. There's all kinds of stuff. So smoke and mirrors, investigation. Who knows? It's a wild deal.
The old cliche about the undrafted guys, you'd rather be undrafted so you can pick your landing spot as opposed to being drafted in the 7th round, or that's just what you say when you're not drafted, you'd rather be drafted. How do your clients feel, and if you advise them on how they should feel, what do you say?
That is the number one question I get by everyone in this. Here's my answer. There is some merit to being able to go where you want. And if you are a very top undrafted free agent, undrafted, you will get more guaranteed money than a 7th-round pick. That's very, very true. However, the metrics do show that if teams make a draft investment in you, there is a higher chance that you'll make a practice squad or maybe even a team, given that the team's done that kind of investment. It comes down to if teams are drafting for best available or need. And so it can kind of go both ways. I tell guys, you always want to get drafted. It helps you down the road. If you get cut, teams are more willing to bring in a guy that was a draft pick versus somebody else by a slight margin. But if you don't, having a backup plan on, the best destination for you and a really, really good comp plan with a signing bonus and paragraph 5 guarantee is good too. So the way I do it personally with my clients, we have a couple teams picked out. If you don't get picked, we try to talk to those teams, say, hey, would you guys be interested if this guy falls through? And we kind of have that destination. And if some other teams outside of that small group of teams call, we try to say, hey, we think we've got a team picked out. If he goes undrafted, if you want him, you're going to have to draft him. And that's been effective in getting guys drafted that otherwise may not be.
Seems like we see this every year, us guys in the media, that when Saturday comes and the draft is over, then there's just a plethora of emails that will come our way from the local schools here, players XYZ 1 through 7 through 8, whatever it might be. They've signed with this school, this team, and I always look forward to that to see where these guys are going to go, because I can follow the draft and find out where they're going to go. And the only way we're going to find out, or not the only way, but the best way, is the sports information people just email you, put out group emails of where all these kids are going. And it makes me wonder, when you get to that point on Saturday afternoon, is that more frenzied compared to all the other times in the draft when there's all these guys who are undrafted and teams are trying to jockey to get these kids?
It's a wild time. So just to give the listeners kind of an idea, these teams call, hey, Evan, we like your center from Weber State. We want to offer him a signing bonus. We want to offer him a guarantee on his contract, a paragraph 5 guarantee. Here's what our depth chart looks like. Are you in? You got 1 minute to decide. It can go like that. And then you kind of get this handshake deal. We call it agreed terms. They send you the contract late that night. You look it over. As the agent, you sign your portion, and it goes back to the team. When the kid reports for rookie minicamp, either that week or the following week, he signs his portion. So what the sports information directors are calling us, late on Saturday night or whatever it may be. Hey, where's your guys going? And we let them know, and that's how it all breaks down. But yes, during the draft, trying to get a guy drafted is very frenzy. But after the draft, even more so. I plan on taking anywhere from 200 to 400 calls on Saturday.
Evan, we've had you on. I think we started having you on because you were representing several guys with local ties. Are you representing several guys with local ties for players across the state of Utah this year?
I am. I've got a kid that probably a lot of your listeners don't know, but they should, because he legitimately has got a real shot at getting drafted. A couple of teams have brought him in already. Gavin Ortega, the offensive lineman for Weber State, is a very large and very realistic sleeper to get drafted in this upcoming draft out of Weber State. So he's my guy locally that I'm working with.
Has NIL changed the draft? Because we've heard that it's changing the NBA in terms of guys maybe being second round, late first, and they want to stay in school and get the guaranteed money as opposed to risking it.
Yes, you are seeing a lot of guys trying to stick it out and, fight for another year. You're seeing people, try to use the courts to get another year because there's significant money in NIL. And so, when you're looking at kids coming out, one of the questions that you're asking is, are you done with college or are you not? Because if you're done with college, okay, let's proceed on how we're going to get you in the NFL. But if there's any chance that you want to come back, well, let's have that conversation on the front end rather than getting into January. And more players are trying to milk every day they can out of college because of the money. So, yes, in many ways it has changed my job.
Evan Brennan joining us, NFL Certified Contract Advisor, a.k.a. agent, at JL Sports Agency. Do you individually or does anyone of your agent represent college players in these NIL discussions? And if so, do you do it to kind of get the foot in the door to represent them at the NFL? We've heard lots of stories back in the day about NFL agents, but they've been certified for a while, and so a lot of the Wild West stories have dropped away. But we have heard the Wild West stories at the college level. So how is that working?
Yeah, so I work for JL Sports. We're a pretty well-known agency. This is actually my first year here. They brought me over, represent guys like Joe Flacco, Kyle Juszczyk, very well-respected agency. My personal practice is very heavy on the pro side, about 90%. I do some NIL work, and it's growing, but it's a minority of what I do. For most of the agents at our firm, it's the other way around, and there is significant money in NIL. We have one or two agents that all they do is NIL work, and we represent millions and millions of dollars on a yearly basis in NIL stuff. So at least at the JL Sports at my firm, we have a very prominent presence in NIL. Me personally, it's a smaller one. I'm kind of the well-known pro guy that deals a lot on that side. But even like I said, I dabble in it with probably 2 or 3 players every single year. But it is a significant factor in the business and the money that can be made on the agent side.
And I'm wondering, as far as certification, from the NFL, it's regulated. How about there's no really regulating agency at the college level? Is there some guys that are maybe considered shady trying to represent these kids? Because unless I'm wrong, they don't have to go through a level of certification that you've had to do.
You're partially true. Yes, I carry the certified contractor license, one of the only ones, if not the only one in the state of Utah. I have to carry malpractice insurance. I undergo an FBI-level background check every single year. Now, individual states also regulate agents, including the state of Utah, and you have to submit to have a license on the state level. It's not very hard to get. It's just $500 or so, and you register with the Secretary of State. It's not heavily regulated. It could be, but it's not. But in theory, any agent in the NIL practicing in Utah and other states would have to register, even if they're not representing pro players, with the state of Utah. And in theory, if you fail to do that or not do it properly or violated the different provisions, you could face real issues. So to answer your question, no, there's not a formal test. No, there's not malpractice insurance that exists for NIL agents. But in theory, you should register with the Secretary of State, state by state, including Utah, which has athlete agent laws that would apply to NIL agents.
Evan Brennan joining us, NFL Certified Contract Advisor at JL Sports Agency. How many guys from Utah schools do you think are going to get drafted? How much insight do you have into that?
Ooh, there's has to be under over. BYU's probably got 2 guys. Utah's got a handful of guys, probably the same. I mentioned my guy at Weber State's got a real shot. There may be one guy at Utah State that's got an outside shot. So you do the math on that, somewhere between, 7 to 10 guys in the state that have got a realistic shot. But, the guy at BYU that I'm rooting for, I don't represent him, is Carson Ryan. Guys like Chase Roberts that I think have got a shot. I think Jack Kelly at BYU is probably going to go. You got Will Farron and guys like that. Utah's got, their high-end picks on the offensive line, defensive line that are, high-end guys that I think have got a real shot of, not just getting drafted, but going really high in the draft. So between all of that, like I said, 7 to 10.
The way this process works every year, it's always fascinated me. They've got at least 3 years likely of film on all these kids, right? Then they bring them back to the combine and they go through all that stuff. Then they go and do pro day workouts. So you got all this stuff. What matters more than other stuff in terms of evaluation? Because you got film of guys actually playing football than, as they say, guys running around in their underwear.
At the end of the day, the film is king, particularly for guys that are quote-unquote known entities, guys that went to the combine, guys from big schools. Film is king. The coaches a lot of times make these decisions, and they're watching film. However, for guys that are more off the beaten path, to get their film really noticed, they're going to have to run and jump really good. And that's how you kind of more or less kind of make yourself stand out as a quote-unquote traits player. So that's another question that I get a lot. If you're a very well-known dominant player on tape at a big school, the tape's going to mean more. If you're not as dominant or you're at a smaller school, yeah, you're going to have to kind of get your shot and get more well-noticed on traits. And that's what you're seeing, like I said, with this Weber State kid. He's got good tape, but not a lot of people are going to look at it unless he tested really good, which he did, and that more or less got him on the board. So that's kind of how that works, and that's why you see guys at the combine from Alabama, from Ole Miss. They don't necessarily test very well, but get drafted really high is because they play really good football against NFL talent every single Saturday. And that's why you see really good players from small schools don't get picked, because their tape doesn't mean as much to teams because it's against lesser talent. They're going to have to test their way and have good tape. So hopefully that answers your question.
It seems inevitable, and it has seemed inevitable for probably 3 or 4 years now, that the NFL is going to go to 18 games. There's been some talk of players only playing 17 if they put in some kind of rule like that. But if they let them play 18, does getting on a practice squad become even more valuable? Does it just become inevitable that those guys will be rotated through and will get a shot?
Well, they expanded the practice squads a few years back. They used to only be 10. They're bigger. And part of that is just because the season keeps expanding. I tell guys, hey, if you're on a practice squad, there's a real chance you're going to get bumped up, particularly later in the year. And there's a lot of strategy teams use with how to manage their practice squad. But yes, the longer the seasons get, the more and more likely it is that teams are going to have to dip into their practice squad, and injuries will occur. It's just inevitable within football. Teams have to, make sure that they're in the best possible situation they can be every single Sunday. So, yes, 100%. A lot more strategy is going to have to go on with how you manage your roster if the seasons do expand beyond where they currently sit. 100%.
I'm also fascinated by these 40 times, right? It's like a split second and even less than a second. And if you were able to get whatever it might be, that under the 4.5 or 4.5, whatever, it's like that's magic numbers, right? And then we go crazy on that. And then you got a kid like Puka Nacua, who may not be a sprinter blazer, and he lasts until the 5th round, I think it was, and then he blows up. How do they reconcile that when they got these stopwatches? It's almost like, it's so vitally important, but yet if a kid isn't a big-time sprinter, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not a big-time player.
100%. And you look at the Rams, they've done a great job with what you would call slow receivers. Look at Cooper Kupp playing for those guys and lasting where he did in a very similar place to Puka Nacua. He did not run very well at the Combine at all, and has proven to be a great player just like Puka. So some of it's an organizational thing that, hey, we're going to watch the tape, we're going to look at a lot of different things, and we're not going to put as much value on the speed. We trust the film more. We trust, what we're seeing in a lot of different arenas more. And so I think the Rams in particular have done a great job with slower receivers and trusting that tape. And I think you'll see some more teams emulate that. And there's some teams that traits mean a lot to us. We have faith in our coaches to develop them, but it is, it's quite inconsistent, I would say, across the league, player to player. You'll see great players that aren't great testers. You'll see horrible players that are incredible testers. And that's just the kind of the fun and variance and variability of the league and the evaluation process.
Do agents get to have relationships with coaches, or is it more a GM personnel thing? And I ask that because we see someone like Harbaugh moving from Baltimore to New York. He's been in the league forever. There figures to be some turnover on that roster, maybe with a relationship if he knows what kind of players a certain agent likes and all that. Maybe they think there'd be a little more trust that it'll be a better fit for some of these end of the roster or jobs. Is there any angle to be played there as an agent? Yeah, so to be totally candid with you, position coaches I deal with daily. I had coaches call me this morning from the NFL. Last night I dealt with the safeties coach. I talked to Vrabel yesterday about one of my guys. Head coaches less so much with undrafted guys. Where you deal a lot with head coaches with draft picks, guys that are legit mid-round or higher draft picks. Head coach will call you, hey, really like your guy, what are you hearing, and kind of feel you out on the market. General managers will do that too. Position coaches get heavily involved with late day 3 guys and undrafted guys, and a good relationship with a position coach can go a long way in getting a guy drafted or get a guy placed in undrafted free agency. They recognize the name. I was talking to an O-line coach for the team that I have, several players on the team. He knew my name. He called me up. Hey, we're looking at this guy. Love all the work you've done with all of our guys. Would love to, maybe get a deal done after the draft on this kid. What are you hearing on this guy? And it was an O-line coach just calling me. So, those relationships do matter. If you're kind of a repeat player, you develop those relationships, and teams kind of, like to deal with people they know versus random wild cards that could hurt them in the process just because they don't know who they are. If the players are, fungible, are kind of exactly the same. So, yes, for sure, those things matter, particularly at the position coach level. There's NFL player agent Evan Brennan. When we come back, the Utah Mammoth. Let's look ahead to Game 3 with Las Vegas. The Vegas Knights, baby. The Golden Knights. We'll do that next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. PK, big game Friday night. The Mammoth get their first taste of playoff victory. It's 1-1. And, the cool thing about the wins, they feel great, but also all it does, it just cranks up the expectations. all right, well, if they can get it in Vegas, then they can get it in Utah. And why can't they get 2 and be up 3-1? There's a real chance to advance here. Expectations are funny that way. It was a pretty satisfying win in Game 2, but I think it just builds the hype and builds the pressure for Game 3.
Yeah, but I don't think it has anything to do with the venue. I'm not impressed with the game, whether it be in Salt Lake or Timbuktu or Las Vegas. I think that the most important thing now is the narrative, as they say, is over about the youth and inexperience. I'm done with that. That doesn't matter. This team is not going to lose because they lack experience compared to some of the guys on the Golden Knights. They showed in Game 2, and then you can argue to a good extent, they showed in Game 1. Obviously, they didn't get that game. But in Game 2, they did. And they showed we can not only compete, we can win. And it's not about showing to ding-dongs like me sitting on their lazy boy watching the game. It is to themselves. And to themselves, they know that they are at least just as good or better than Las Vegas. And that's all you need to be right now. Worry about second round if it comes. And so when they take the ice Friday, sure, I think that in the beginning it's going to be electric and they're going to get an emotional boost about playing at home. I understand that. But at the same time, these guys on the other team, they're going to take the ice and they're going to hear all the noise and the smoke and all the bells and whistles that they have planned for the game and shirts on the back of the seats, whatever it might be. And that in turn jacks them up too, because they like to play in front of rowdy environments. In fact, you've heard many, and I know you literally have heard this, as we all have, that there's nothing more satisfying in terms of going and quieting the crowd, right? And so that gets you pumped up. So I think that sort of flushes each other out is what I'm trying to say, and it's a bit of a wash. The most important thing to me is looking in their eyes on the television and the way they played and the emotions that they were showing, that they've captured the flag in that way. They've climbed the hill. Now it's about who goes out, who plays, who takes advantage of breaks, because we know one went in off a skate. Great for the Mammoth. They were pressuring the goal, and they can take that opportunity to use that advantage. And then they scored, and the one dude, what was it? I call him Barbasol, but that's not his name.
Barbashev.
Yeah, he's within seconds. It's amazing to me how they can go, and then within seconds, one team scores, and the others just boom, and the momentum is just stalled. Well, don't have some turnovers. Don't give the opposition easier opportunities. I don't know that you really ever have an easy opportunity. I suppose you do sometimes, but don't give them easier opportunities based off of turnovers, and you get in a numbers game there where it's to your disadvantage. So that's the thing that I took from Game 2, is that I'm done with the inexperience. Now it's all about playing and who makes the plays.
The inexperience is an easy thing to point to at the start of the season. It's not a bad thing to point to because we have seen times where it's really paid off. But I think a couple things have happened here in the first 2 games that, to your point, make that storyline not an important storyline in this series. Maybe in some other series, maybe for some other teams. But with these 2 teams in this series, a couple things jump out. One, the turnover. And like you say, it's 1-1. It doesn't seem like – how long is it going to take to get that next goal? And not only does the next one happen at 2-1, but then the Mammoth give it right back at 2-2. But it's Sergachev. It wasn't an inexperienced guy who gave the puck away. It's a guy who won 2 cups before he came to Utah. So experience isn't the storyline on that goal. And to grab the momentum and then to give it right back like that so quick, that was a big storyline in that game. And then I think the other thing is – Cooley's 21. He's about to turn 22. Gunther was 22 for most of the season, but he just had his birthday a couple weeks ago, so he's 23 now. These are the guys we're talking about who are talented but young and inexperienced. Well, Gunther scored, and Cooley scored in both games.
Yeah.
So the young and experienced guys, they are delivering. They're not experienced anymore. Cooley scored twice, and he had another move in the first game that just the stick handle, the puck handle, just unreal, beating multiple defenders, and then he just couldn't beat the goaltender at the end. But I mean, he can do this. And I think Vegas knows he can do it. That's why we're all lip reading, I'm going to bleep and kill you. And that you have to say that because he scares you and you're trying to intimidate him and bully him. And he wouldn't be bullied. He scored. Nobody beat him up. Nobody killed him. They did trip him, I guess, for a penalty. But he scored the game-winning goal with 6 minutes left. So I think the thing that's on display, and this goes hand in hand with the experience, Vegas is experienced, but they're also older. And who's younger and faster and more athletic? Late in that game, the Mammoth were just blowing past the Golden Knights. And the odd man rushes, the transition moments, the fast breaks for you basketball fans. The speed was on full display there. Who's the faster team? It's the Mammoth. Yeah, and maybe some of that's tied into the youth, and you just take the inexperience with it. So what? You're blowing by guys.
I think that for Cooley, it is totally Cooley to be Cooley right now. And they know it. I know it. I know they know it. They know I know it in terms of quality. Now, it's out there. He is a great hockey player, whether he's 21 or 31. The fact that he's 21 is super Cooley because then that means that he should have some great times ahead, as should the team. And Bill Armstrong's talked about how this team right now may not necessarily be built to win it all. Their best teams are forthcoming, right? And that's out of, I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said. The thing about that is we're not talking about down the line right now. This team right now, today, when they take the ice on Friday, is built to win Game 3, and it's built to win the first-round series against the Golden Knights. That's what matters. That's in the moment. I fully believe that. I believe that they put the team together, and that was the stated goal to get to the playoff. Well, the next stated goal was to win the first round. So here we are, and they're right where they need to be. Obviously, where they want to be is 2-0, but they don't necessarily need to be there at that point. They need to be here. And here they are with this Golden Knight opportunity.
Oh.
Look at you go.
And they have this golden Friday night opportunity. See, I am willing. There's a lot of people over there on the other side on the round ball that don't really like me in that organization, but I'm willing to help market it, right? And golden Friday night opportunity. I'm giving you that and run with it. That's what you have to be able to do that. And, if they win, and I like the interviews they were doing is that, okay, we've won Game 2. That's all that is. That's all you did is win Game 2. You certainly didn't win the series, and I don't really care about ice advantage and all that stuff. I want to have play advantage, not venue advantage, because that can only carry you so far. And same thing on the flip side. If I'm Vegas, I'm not sweating bullets over here by any stretch. I mean, they expected a close series, and so far that looks like what we're going to get, which for me, that's what I want as a fan. I want to turn on the TV not knowing what's going to happen, and that's going to keep me enthralled. I'm not going to be bored because I don't know what's going to happen, and anything can happen. In my mind, and I don't know what the odds are by any stretch, I don't care, but it's not a long shot that either team wins. So for the Mammoth, do what you can do, play a little bit better, because I think as the series progresses, you're probably going to have to play better. But the most important thing I took from Game 2 is individually, talking about Cooley, using him as the example, this guy believes that right now I'm at the top of my game. And then collectively, these guys are not starting, but definitely believing in themselves that they could win.
That whole home court, home field, home ice advantage thing, we talk about it in every sport, but I think statistically over time, the two sports where it matters the least are hockey and baseball. Other sports, you can see a little bit of a baked-in advantage to the home team, but I think when you get to hockey and baseball, just not that big a factor. There's so many other things that are more important. Yeah. I think it's just the math. You don't want to be down 2-0 and have to win 4 out of 5. That's the math you're trying to avoid.
I understand that, and I buy that because that becomes overwhelming. It's just that I am so hesitant to bring in anything about home court, home ice, because I don't want my guys or my gals even thinking about that.
Yeah,
I want them thinking about
yeah.
the focus is playing to the utmost of your ability level on that particular, whether it's game 3, game 4, whatever game it might be, rather than, we're home. Because you cannot let up whatsoever. You let up and you'll get beat 5-1.
Yes. And I think that what we've seen in this series, what it really comes down to, and if the Mammoth has learned anything, and it, I guess you know it, but it's different to actually do it and feel it and experience it. But this should be a close series and a long series. We heard that from other people, not just local homers here. Other people are like, it looks kind of close. It looks like a long series. And they are close games. And so really, you can play really well for a long period of time, but that third period, so much is going to ride on it. And look at these first 2 games. The Mammoth are up 2-1. But they give up 2 goals, and they give up the third with the empty netter. But those first 2 goals, they lost the third period, so they lost the game. This game's 2-2. They did stuff right. They did stuff wrong. It's 2-2 going to third. You got to win the third period. They won the third period, so they won the game. So their ability to get focused at a higher level and compete at a higher level, and Cooley in his postgame was talking about how awesome it is, and it is different. And now he knows it because he's done it, and he loves it, and he's apparently pretty good at it right away, judging by what he's done in the first 2 games. But now when they go out on the ice, I think they've got to think that. Like, it's going to be a slugfest. It'll probably be close going to third, and we got to win the third period. And if they keep winning the third period, they're going to win this series. You might win the third period and still lose a game. You might dig yourself enough of a hole. But I think on the whole, it's going to be close. It's going to come right down to the end. These next games, whether there's 3, 4, 5 of them, I think they're going to look a lot like the first 2. I'm going to be real surprised if we're sitting here watching and breaking down 4-1 and 6-1 games when we get back in here. It just doesn't seem like this is how it's built. I think Vegas knows they're slower. They were doing the graphics and showing how they had 3 guys on the blue line. They're basically just clogging it up. It's no different than we've been sitting here talking about the Jazz and teams that have come in and clogged up the paint for years. Well, they're clogging up the ice in the blue line because if they get in space, the Mammoth are just skating past them.
Yeah. I also believe that it put a little bit of doubt into Vegas's mind. This is literally their first loss since the coaching change, right?
Right.
And so now
10 games in.
Right.
They had an overtime loss, but it's the first time they've been beaten in the regulation 60 minutes.
And what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean, oh my gosh, we're up against it. It could mean, hey, we're up against it. We got to step up our game.
Yeah.
And it could mean that. And that could be a little bit of a refresher for them. That's what I'm saying is I really don't know. I can't handicap and say I've got a feel for this, I've got a feel for that. Not that I'm a hockey expert by any stretch, but having watched both games in their entirety and obviously watched the Mammoth the entire season to a good extent, that I'm not sure which way to go. How is it going to play out? Which means it's basically a 50-50 toss-up type of game, or series for that matter. So who is going to make the plays? And the reason why I say I'm over the inexperience, I'm more about the talent. And talent, I think, is going to be the deciding factor. And limiting mistakes, I think sports to a degree, Majerus always used to talk about that. Basketball is a game of mistakes, and the team that has fewer mistakes is probably going to win. So don't allow some stupid stuff that makes it hard, especially in this sport, especially in the playoffs, where points, or in this case goals, are hard to come by, and it has to be a similar intense focus the whole time. And because of the fact that they have these various lines, you should be able to focus for that relatively short span of time. That's why it makes it so fun to be able to turn on the TV come Friday night to see what's going to happen and then go from there. And I do think, I agree with you, the team that wins a 2-1 has a 2-1 advantage, clearly has that advantage. It's not necessarily where the game is played. It's the fact that, hey, I only need to win 2 more, you need to win 3 more, and then so on as the series goes.
When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
It's time to get your morning started with the news you need to know.
News update.
This is what's trending with DJ and PK. Hashtag NBA.
Fearless, maybe. Just a guy that, can be trusted down the stretch. Yeah, those two things. I think those two things are most important. Like a guy that's going to step into the moment with confidence, and that gives everyone else confidence. And then the guy that everyone trusts to make a right play.
That's Oklahoma City Thunder Shea Gillis Alexander. SGA wants to be remembered as someone who came up big in clutch moments. Oklahoma City up 2-0 on the Suns. He had 37 points and 9 assists as the Thunder beat the Suns 121-107, so they lead the series 2-0. It's a 1 versus an 8, and these tend to be pretty predictable, PK. Not always, but this one certainly is.
Oh, yeah. Predictable as the sun rising in the east, buddy.
And Detroit, the other 1 seed, beat Orlando, the 8 seed in the East. That series now 1-1 after a 98-83 win for Detroit. Why didn't they do that in Game 1? Who knows? They didn't, but they restore order. The series now 1-1.
One of the mysteries of the world.
Exactly. Now, Jalen Williams did live Game 2 for the Thunder. He had some kind of third-quarter injury there. They were without him earlier this year, PK. They're pretty deep, but nonetheless, a little cause for concern right there.
Yeah, I'm not ready to hit the panic button, buddy.
Adam Silver with expansion looming in Seattle and Las Vegas. People wonder what the future is for the Memphis Grizzlies, and Silver suggests Nashville games. Wow, shades of the Utah Jazz playing in Las Vegas, of Kansas City playing in Omaha years ago.
Well, I don't think you need to go years ago. I think you can go San Antonio playing in Austin as current times. So I think that's what he's looking for. It's not anything that's old-time stuff. It's something that's happening now.
More games coming up tonight. If you're ready for a little more NBA basketball, and with the 1s and the 8s taking the night off, maybe it'll be a little more competitive. Knicks and Hawks are tied at a game apiece. Nuggets and Timberwolves are tied at a game apiece. They both have a game 3. And Cleveland in Toronto, they lead the Raptors 2-0. So a triple header tonight. All those games on Prime Video tonight. DJ and PK.
Hashtag NFL.
I want to be a best quarterback. And so my goals, yes, that was a good stepping stone for me, but, that wasn't the last stepping stone. And so being able to grow off of last year and be able to progress in ways that I want to, that last year wasn't really anything. It was a good year, and we got many more good years coming up.
Caleb Williams. They're moving forward, but they're not where they want to get yet. Caleb's saying the right things right there.
It was a very promising season to look forward to several good years, as he says. I mean, they've got something that is evidence now. It's in the books. It's proven what they can do, and it was it was a gigantic leap forward for them. So I understand his level of optimism.
Yep, saying all the right things, and got a coach, Ben Johnson, who did good things as the offensive coordinator in Detroit. Now had a good year 1 as the head coach in Chicago. Maybe they're on to something there. NFL draft starts tonight. Got a lot of anticipation for this, PK? Tracking the local guys? Or it's just something to channel surf into?
Well, I don't have an NFL team, so I don't look at it from that perspective. But I treat these drafts the same every year. The level of intrigue for me doesn't really change. I got a couple of guys here on the offensive line for the Utes who are expected to go in the first round, and it's just a question of where, not necessarily. I guess when would be the factor too. But from everything we've been reading now for over a year, and Fano seemed like this was just something that was going to happen for 2 years now, and both these guys leaving eligibility on the table, as they should, because this is the opportunity now to do something that they've been dreaming about and working forward. So there was no need to play college ball anymore. So from that perspective, it's not I'm not intrigued because I know they're going to go. But if you want to go where, in this case, that lead where and when are the same thing, I guess you can have intrigue. And I'm sure they have a lot of intrigue. Yeah. I always thought it would be weird. You wake up on a morning of the draft, you have a really strong idea you're going to go in the first round, but you don't know necessarily where. You may have an idea of 2, 3, maybe even 4 teams, who knows, because of the conversations you've had, although that doesn't always pan out. And then from that perspective, tonight or probably tomorrow, since I'm more and more tomorrow, you're going to be on a plane somewhere. And that's weird. I know I've got to go. I've never had that in my life. I know I'm going to be on a plane tomorrow, but I don't know where it's going. That would be kind of bizarre.
That would be. My life is about to hit the fork in the road. But where?
Yeah.
The phone's going to ring, and someone's going to be on the other end, and they're going to totally reshape my life.
Yeah, and then I'm on my way, and then there you go from there. That's got to be, for those individuals, I mean, really, you could say for just about everyone but Mendoza that he knows where he's going to go, right, obviously, and he's not going to be at the draft. There's something with his mother, I read, and he wants to be in Florida. But other than that, and it's a big party, and they show the people in the stands. You could draft someone you never heard of, but if you're a Carolina Panthers fan and they choose that guy, they show the section of Carolina fans, and they go nuts. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. I do think in the case of the Utes, for all the noise about, hey, let's not get too excited about recruiting because guys we've never heard of blow up and have great careers, and then there are the guys who you think are going to be great, but they end up transferring. But there's a couple of stories of 2 guys who were highly recruited and thought of and talked about and delivered on it and delivered to the level that they're out of here a year early, and everybody thinks it's a great idea. That's the Cinderella story that everybody wants to have happen, and there's so many stories now that don't match it, but those 2 guys have done it.
Yeah.
All right, round 1 tonight, round 2 and 3 tomorrow, and then they will wrap up the NFL draft on Saturday. The other news, Mike Vrabel is seeking counseling. He's not going to be with the Patriots for the draft day. And the Cowboys say they won't talk long-term deal with George Pickens. Lots of speculation that they might draft a receiver. They had a really bad defense last year near the bottom of the league. The offense was up the top and the defense was down at the bottom. But they might draft a wide receiver and just let Pickens play out this last year and let him move on and have someone else come in, or maybe even try to trade him. So we'll see what the Cowboys do. One of the intriguing storylines.
I don't get the Vrabel thing, and I don't care about what's going on off the field. That I know it's been sensational, but it really has no interest to me. I mean, morally, it's disgusting if that's the way it turned out because these individuals are married. They didn't break any laws, so. But I find it sort of odd that you need counseling on the 3rd day. You couldn't wait to the 4th day or the 5th day. You needed to do it that day.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he had it planned and it just got announced, or if it's planned now, why it wasn't planned earlier. But like you said, it's not. We've said this before. It's not really why we got into the business to dig into all this stuff. Maybe it was just announced because he's not going to be visible on the draft day. And
well, fine, I get it. I understand that, but why couldn't it wait a day?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know that whatever problems that they have, and they've obviously got a bunch, that it wouldn't be delayed one more day or what have you. But maybe that the coach isn't involved in the selection process for the Patriots as other teams.
DJ and PK.
Hashtag BYU.
AJ Dybantsa going on social media to tease a big announcement coming up later this morning, 9:45 Mountain Time, and then he'll be on Instagram Live at 10 o'clock. The assumption is he's going to announce he's going to the NBA draft. Will he do something with some kind of NIL sponsor at the same time? What else might he have planned? Or will it just be really straightforward? Is it something else? Well, Stick around, 9:45, 2.5 hours away. We'll all find out together.
Okay.
Kennard Davis Jr.'s DUI charge dismissed during the past BYU season, suspended there for a couple of games. There's a speeding charge, a ticket, and so he's paid that, and now he's on his way. DJ and PK.
Hashtag Major League Baseball.
Mesa drills. Nico drives one in the air. Deep left field. It's got a chance. Gone. Nico Horner. Cubs lead 4-1.
Here comes. And it is cranked high in the air, left center field, and that ball is gone. Yes, they count. Ellie has his second home run of the night, his third hit of the game, and it is 12-2 Reds.
Here's pitch. Swing on a deep drive, right left field, and looking up, watching it leave the ballpark. The entirety of this edifice here in Boston, a home run by Giancarlo Stanton, his third, and the Yankees have a 1-0 lead.
And the Yankees go on to beat the Red Sox 4-1. This legendary rivalry, although the Red Sox off to a bad start sitting in last place, and the Yankees roll in first place. Red Sox hoping to turn it around. It's not been going well. Yankees have now won 5 in a row.
Way to go, Yankees. Giancarlo, who went by Mike when he was younger, hits the ball about as hard as anybody I've ever seen, man.
When he hits that thing, it goes.
Yeah, I saw him hit a home run in Arizona once. I swear I blinked and I missed it.
You heard Cubs highlights in there. Nico Horner, the Cubs do it again. Cubs are rolling. They beat the Phillies 7-2. So 8 straight wins for the Cubs, 8 straight losses for the Phillies. Shohei went out there, PK, and he was sensational on the mound, although, as you like to point out, he's not usually good at the plate when he's on the mound. And he was 0 for 4 with a strikeout at the plate. But on the mound, 6 shutout innings, 5 hits, struck out 7, walked nobody. But the Dodgers didn't score, so the Giants just basically waited him out and then beat the bullpen 3-0 the final. The Giants
right, he's only going to go 6, it looks like.
Yep.
And I watched the whole game. It was on something network, one baseball network or one of them, I don't remember. But I watched the whole game just to watch him pitch. And, you know, he had his what they call a sweeper these days. The slider was working. Everything was working, and he throws so dang hard as it is that he becomes very difficult to hit. And, yeah, as soon as they took him out, the Giants hit a 3-run homer, and that was all she wrote. And and then there's a story today, I was looking at it this morning, about Dave Roberts, you know, what do I want to do when Ohtani pitches? Well, I'll tell you what you want to do. Take him out of the batting lineup. You're basically giving away an inning. It's phenomenal what he does, but this is too much to do on those very days. You're better off. They've got this kid rushing who's a backup catcher to Smith, and he's hitting over 400 and mashing the ball. That's
so
your
give
guy.
Him a chance.
Yeah. And you've got other guys too that you can. They're still down with bets out. I understand that, but I think just asking him to do that is just too much. I can remember when I was pitching as a youth that I had no interest in batting those days because you're just thinking that's all you're thinking about is pitching, and to try to change. And I can only imagine at the major league level. Occasionally he can do it, but now he's pitching more. He's still not a regular guy, but he's pitching more than he has ever with the Dodgers. So, and baseball is such a data-driven sport that to me it's a no-brainer. Don't have him there. They're talking about maybe move him down the lineup. Yeah, 10th.
You know they've got the data, right? How could they not?
Right, of course they do.
But it comes down to the player's ego and what they want. And
well, Japanese usually are deferred by nature, so I don't think he's going to raise a stink. In the big leagues, they are.
Yeah. With the Dodgers losing and the Padres losing, the red-hot Atlanta Braves have won 7 out of 8. They came 3 down to beat the National. The Braves now with the best record in baseball. And they are hot right now. Michael Harris II, homer and twice. Drive them to victory. DJ and PK.
Hashtag RSL.
Segovia, he'll have a go, and goal, yes! Picks it out, top right corner. What a shot, Telasco Segovia, and Miami has the lead. 50-50 ball headed in the air. Miami has it to the top of the 18. Shot, one time Suarez off the half volley, and he buries it, and Miami doubles the lead, and it looks like they're going to take all 3 points.
Real Salt Lake gets shut out. All good things must come to an end. There's the end of the 6-match unbeaten streak. Miami breaking up a scoreless game with 2 late goals, 82nd and 84th minute. RSL had their chances. PK had them early. They were playing really well the opening 10 minutes, had 2 great chances, didn't finish them. Miami got control of that game, and RSL could really never get comfortable again.
Rats.
Yes, they've now lost to the second-place team in the West and the second-place team in the East. They're only 2 losses of the year. And right back at it. Sunday, they finish off 3 games in 9 days. They will play the Galaxy in L.A. Sunday at 5 o'clock. Messi had his chances. Should have gotten his first assist of the year, and his teammate just missed the shot, sent it wide. But the crowd was there. One guy ran out on the field so he could hug Messi, stop the game. There's one in every crowd.
Oh, are you doing this from jail this morning?
He's probably locked up somewhere.
No, are you?
Neighbor in Sandy.
I figured that guy was you.
No, that guy was not me.
I didn't know if you were doing it from the Slammer this morning.
No, I'm not in the Slammer. I stayed up there in my little room there on the 4th floor where I was supposed to be. Didn't go.
Because you're like Otis the Drunk on Andy Griffith. You have your own personal cell. You just lock yourself up.
I just come and let myself in.
And, you know, and I read something on social media the other day. You know why all those people were happy in Mayberry on the Andy Griffith show?
No, I do not.
Because outside of Otis, none of them were married. Barney wasn't. Aunt Bee wasn't. Andy wasn't. Floyd the Barber wasn't. Goober wasn't. Gomer wasn't. Thelma Lou wasn't. Helen wasn't. There's something to be said for that.
I had never heard that before.
I know.
Thanks for clearing that up decades later. I had never really.
I just saw it.
That.
I saw it like 2 days ago. It made me laugh.
Yeah. All right, DJ and PK.
Hashtag NHL.
Well, Ryan Smith getting on social media, stirring it up a little bit. Hey, come on down, you Vegas Golden Knight fans with your golden jerseys. You can swap them for a Mammoth jersey for free.
Wouldn't that be come on up from Vegas?
Yeah, I guess so. You're right. You can't come on down from the south to the north. That's coming on up. You're right. My bad. You can't go back west. You can go out west and you can go back east, but that's my bad. It'll be interesting to hear how many people take him up on that. I mean, obviously we didn't have the NHL here, and Vegas won a Stanley Cup, and they were a new thing, and you're a hockey fan, so I can see why some people got on board as Vegas fans here, but now Ryan Smith making sure they have a chance to
I think
swap
0
that
people will
jersey.
take him up on. I think this
0?
This is his time to shine, man. Get some attention.
They're back at it tomorrow night with Game 3. Last night, the Flyers in the Battle of Pennsylvania destroying the Penguins 5-2. They lead the series 3-0. Dallas scores in double overtime to beat Minnesota 4-3. They lead the series 2-1. And Anaheim wins in Edmonton, a wild game 6-4. That series tied 1-1. Edmonton, they score a lot of goals, but they let in a lot of goals too. Will it be their undoing? For one night it was. See when it catches up with them. That's what's trending in this segment, sponsored by Shamrock Plumbing. No job too big or too small. Get the personal touch with Shamrock Plumbing. All right, coming up, we're talking NFL Draft. Justin Melo covers the NFL for Sports Illustrated. He's going to join us at 7:30. Matt Larkin from the Daily Faceoff. We'll talk NHL playoffs. We'll see what he thinks of the first 2 games in the Mammoth Golden Knights series and what he thinks Utah and Vegas will do in Game 3. He's coming up at 8:30, and hopefully we'll talk to Cole Bagley in the 9 o'clock hour. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Mom, can you tell me a story?
Sure. Once upon a time, a mom needed a new car.
Was she brave?
She was tired, mostly. But she went to Carvana.com and found a great car at a great price. No secret treasure map required.
Did she have to fight a dragon?
Nope, she bought it 100% online. From her bed, actually.
Was it scary?
Honey, it was as unscary as car buying could be.
Did the car have a sunroof?
It did, actually.
Okay, good story.
Car buying you'll want to tell stories about. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by Justin Melo, who covers the NFL and the NFL Draft for Sports Illustrated. Justin, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Appreciate you for having me. Finally, months of evaluation, months of conversations, lots of lying, lots of smoke screens. It all comes to a head today. Excited to see what happens tonight.
Yeah, we had a guy named Walt Perrin who used to run the NBA draft for the Utah Jazz, and they would make him available every time there's a workout. So we'd only talk to him in like the 6 weeks leading up to the draft, but we'd talk to him 15 times. And he always used to say, the Liars Club is in session. How much do you know what's going to happen today? How much can you dope out the top 10? And how much are you just waiting to see thing? And there's a trade coming that nobody's talking about or that somebody was lying about even if they were asked about it, and this is all going to get scrambled.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting evening. And, this draft is incredibly unpredictable and unique in terms of, where the blue chip talent is, who are the premier prospects, which positions are weaker than others. And I think that's going to lead to very unpredictable results tonight. Sure, we've known for a long time that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza at number 1 overall. After that, I don't know that we know anything. The New York Jets seem to be going back and forth on David Bagley and Arvell Reese. It was initially, it's going to be Arvell Reese, then it was David Bagley. Now it's Arvell Reese again. And now I think it might be Bagley again, actually, based on all the back and forth over this past week. We know they're going to go with one of those pass rushers. The Arizona Cardinals are a real wild card at number 3. That's maybe where the draft begins. Do they go with the leftover pass rusher, who doesn't go there at number 2? Do they trade the pick? I've spoken to a lot of people who indicate they would love to trade down, and I think that kind of checks out with, Monty Ossenfort, their general manager, and what their needs are. Or does the owner get involved? That owner is kind of known to be a bit of a meddler, and there are some whispers out there that he really likes Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. And, why wouldn't he? He sells jerseys. He's probably the best player in the draft. I think they need to put some butts in seats there in Arizona, and I think Jeremiah Love would do that. Certainly don't feel that's the direction that the general manager wants to go in based on all he did at running back this offseason. It's going to be an interesting night, but I think it probably starts at number 3.
Since we know Mendoza is going 1, do we have an idea? Do you have an idea that we got to wait till the end of the first round or maybe even the second round before the second quarterback goes?
Absolutely. I'm at the point where it might be crazy to predict this, but I am expecting a team to trade back into the first round for Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson. I think the position is too valuable. It's a weak quarterback class. At times, beginning of the season, especially for Alabama, he played at a pretty high level. Certainly, he was in the mix at number 1, we thought, in September, October, based on how he was playing. So the Arizona Cardinals are a big one. In my final mock draft, which published this morning on NFL Draft on SI, if they trade down from 3, which, again, I believe is the general manager's preferred outcome, they would then be acquiring enough capital to make a move back into the first to take Ty Simpson. I think that's where things could get really interesting because right now I believe they're scheduled at 35 or 36. They've got one of those opening picks in the second round. They'd probably have to come up a team like the Buffalo Bills at 26, from what I understand, are more than willing to move down, even move out of the first round altogether. They're targeting more of a devalued position. The Bills like the linebackers. They like the D tackles. And they're willing to say, hey, we know we can get that guy at 35, 36. We're willing to move back. So certainly the New York Jets are another team. Everyone seems to be ignoring them. They've got 2 second-round picks. They could absolutely be a team that moves back into the first round, for Ty Simpson, if that's the quarterback they covet. So I do anticipate that one of these teams are going to move back up into the opening 32 to get the second quarterback, Alabama's Ty Simpson.
Chiefs have had a great run. They have been awesome. Now they've had a bad year. They get a rare high draft pick at number 9. What do you think Andy Reid wants to add to the team? Because they don't get to draft in the spot very often, and they may not get to draft in a spot like this for a while again after this one.
Yeah, they also have number 29. Remember, they traded cornerback Trent McDuffie and got the 29th pick from the Rams. So they're going into tonight equipped with 2 first-round picks. And I'm told that they could get aggressive. They've explored moves all the way up to number 3. If a pass rusher one of the pass rushers is guaranteed to be there, right? David Bagley or Arvell Reese. I'm told, they've had some discussions about moving up there. I believe they covet one of those players more than the other. So that might depend on who the Jets take at number 2. I also think alternatively that they might be willing to move maybe not that far up, but number 6, a couple picks in front of them, the Cleveland Browns are another team who have explored moving down the board. They covet a left tackle, and they believe they can get a very good one by moving down a couple spots and picking up a few more picks. So Reuben Bain, the edge rusher out of Miami, I think is one of those guys that the Chiefs could target at be a slight trade up. And also Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, who, the working belief is that if he's there at number 7 for the Washington Commanders, they might sprint that pick to the podium. So if you're a team like Kansas City at 9 and you covet the wideout, and I'm of the opinion that they should. I do not think they had enough weapons for Patrick Mahomes last season. I think they've kind of botched the receiver position in recent off seasons, in all honesty. Now you've got Mahomes coming off a serious injury. You want to make life as easy for him as possible. If they can't get up to 3 for a pass rusher or they deem it to be too rich, don't be surprised if they move up just a couple of spots and target the wide receiver, Carnell Tate.
How about our 2 local guys from Utah along the offensive line? Where do you see them going?
Yeah, I think Spencer Fano, you look at a bunch of teams. I think he'd be in play for the Browns if they stay at 6, but I do think, the Browns are probably going to try to move down and maybe target one of those other tackles. I've got Fano going to the Miami Dolphins at number 11 in my final mock. No bells and whistles there. The Dolphins stay put, let the board fall to them, and pick up who I think is a really good tackle. I know a lot of people talked about him maybe having to move to guard, but I thought he looked outstanding at the NFL Combine. The movement skills to me, and I thought the arm length came in at a pretty decent number, not quite as short as some people feared. So if he can stick and play tackle, I think the Dolphins would have a lot of interest in that at 11, especially with them needing a long-term answer at right tackle. For the other Utah tackle, Caleb Lamu, I've got going in the first round. I don't know that, I think he's a fringe first rounder. That's a borderline thing. I specifically got him going to the Houston Texans. I actually did a really good interview with Caleb the other day that published on NFL Draft on SI just yesterday. So check out that conversation if you haven't yet. I had a real fun time with him. What a good, smart kid. But he flips the switch when he's on the field. A lot tougher and aggressive than he seems from a personality perspective. But I think the Houston Texans, back end of the first round, he told me the San Francisco 49ers hosted him on a pre-draft top 30 visit. So I think there are a couple teams that might target him, in that 28 to 32 range.
I'm really intrigued by the Giants for multiple reasons. The AFC West got really good. I mean, the Chiefs were on their great run. And then both the Chargers and the Broncos went out and got established coaches who'd won before and been really good. And sure enough, the Broncos and Chargers have made back-to-back playoff appearances. Now, we're old enough to remember a day when the NFC East was just fantastic. And it has not been fantastic lately. But If Philly can stay good, Washington can have a bounce-back year. They're down last year. The injuries were a factor. And the Giants, who've been wandering for a while, bringing in John Harbaugh, to me it kind of fits what his brother did with the Chargers and what Sean Payton has done with the Broncos. And they got the 5th and the 10th pick. They got a young quarterback and a young running back. What do you think they do? Because I've been stunned to hear about their interest in Jeremiah Love. I mean, obviously he's an awesome talent, but they've already got it back. It seems like they'd have other needs. What do you think they do?
Yeah, I think they're going to prioritize weapons in the trenches. At number 5, I think one of the easier projections, assuming Love, isn't on the board. If he is, things might get a little complicated. But I think the Giants go Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State at 5. Harbaugh had a lot of great linebackers throughout his time at Baltimore, that really impacted the game. Obviously, even guys like Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen, guys who made a difference. I think they're going to target Sonny Styles there. Elite athlete, right? Freakish numbers at the NFL Combine, set records, vertical jump and broad jump for his position group. And we talk about that position being devalued, but you look at what he does on tape, the way that he uses his length and his range to clog up passing lanes. All the rage in today's NFL in terms of offense and the way they pass the football has kind of become targeting the middle of the field. You look at the way that Sonny Styles defends the middle of the field, I think he's a big, big asset. At number 10, things get interesting there. I think they could go a number of ways. I look at Vega Aone, the guard out of Penn State. I think he would solidify a huge hole for them, help protect a quarterback who's, was injury prone throughout his rookie season. I look at Jordan Tyson. There's been a lot of smoke connecting them to the Arizona State receiver. Certainly that pick would be an investment not only in Jackson Dart, of course, in his development, but it would also protect them a little bit as, their number one receiver, Malik Neighbors, is coming off a devastating season-ending injury. And remember, they lost Wendell Robinson in free agency. So there's a need there, opposite Neighbors at receiver. One possibility that I can't shake if they do end up taking Sonny Styles at 5. Now, I do predict that they'll take the receiver at 10. But what if Caleb Downs, the Ohio State safety, is still on the board? Do they even consider the possibility, if they get Styles or even Arvell Reese, let's say at 5, do they think about reuniting Caleb Downs with one of those Ohio State teammates? He's one of the best players in the draft. I think he's probably the second best player in the draft, in all honesty. But we are expecting him to slide a little bit due to the nature of playing a devalued position at safety. If Caleb Downs is there, I'd have to think that'd be pretty tempting, maybe to reunite him with one of his teammates. The one catch, the reason I can't get myself all the way there is I'd be a little surprised if they spent both of their picks, 5 and 10, on defense and kind of neglected, the quarterback and the development that he needs to undergo.
Using the Cardinals as an example, where do you stand in terms of best player available versus needs? Because in football, every team has some needs, and maybe you only get to draft this great player one opportunity, and you might have to wait several years.
Yeah, the Cardinals are actually a really interesting example because we've heard the smoke about them, I alluded to earlier, potentially with the owner getting involved and maybe taking Jeremiah Love at number 3. I think they've probably got to I don't think they're in a position to do that, right? Like, you look at this roster, they don't have a quarterback. They've got, right tackle's a huge hole. I mean, I think ideally they would love to trade down and get a guy that I think they'd consider at number 3, and that's Miami Hurricanes offensive tackle Francis Mahinoa. I think there's a strong possibility that would be sort of a plug-and-play player for them. They do not have a right tackle on the roster right now. They've got a first-year offensive-minded head coach in Mike LaFleur. The Cardinals, it's a great question because, even pass rusher at 3, I mean, that probably marries need with best player available if they get stuck in that spot and can't trade down. But they've drafted a lot of pass rushers in recent years. Darius Robinson in the first round. They took a second-rounder a couple years ago out of LSU. They signed Josh Sweat to a big contract in free agency. They're in a fascinating position, because chances are the best player available is going to be the running back. They restructured James Conner. They signed Tyler Algier in free agency. They have Trey Benson they drafted highly a couple of years ago. I do not think they should take a running back there at number 3. They should probably try to find a way to marry need with, the second or third best player available, let's call it. But I think ideally they'd love to trade down and pick up a tackle because they desperately need someone to be plug and play on the right side.
You've obviously spent a lot of time trying to figure out this NFL draft, and the NFL team spent a lot of money and time trying to figure it out. And then Puka Nacua slides to the 5th round and has over 4,000 yards receiving in 3 years. Is there anybody out there you've come across who think, I really like this player. I know he's not going day 1. I'm not even sure he's going day 2, but he's going to be a really good pro.
Yeah, there are a couple receivers I like, and one who I don't think has that upside, but I really, really like is Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver out of Alabama. I wrote an article yesterday on SI, the most pro-ready prospects at every position in the draft, and I chose him as the wide receiver who's the most pro-ready. Ahead of all these, we might get 6 receivers in the 1st round. None of them are going to be Jeremy Bernard. None of them are as pro-ready as he is. You watch him on tape. He's the savviest, smartest route runner in this class. Might lack the high-end athletic tools needed, to be a true dominant wide receiver 1. But I think he's going to be a big-time QB-friendly wide receiver 2. All he does, if you can keep his evaluation as simple as it gets, is that he gets open and catches the football. He identifies soft zones in zone coverage, able to exploit defenses, really smart, really good football player, can run a full route tree. I really, really like Bernard out of Alabama, and I think he should go in the 2nd round. But I could talk your ear off all day. I think there are a lot of prospects. Skylar Bell, that's a really underrated receiver out of UConn, caught 95 balls this past year for 1,300 yards, 10-plus touchdowns. I really like Charles Demings, the cornerback out of Stephen F. Austin. I think he's going to be a big-time steal. Keelan Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. No one's going to – you asked about a receiver. No one's going to bring up a guard typically, but I really like Keelan Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. I think he's going to be plug-and-play. This draft certainly lacks premier blue-chip talent at premier positions, but I think there's going to be a lot of value found specifically at, wide receiver, the interior of the offensive line, cornerback, safety, linebacker. Some really good value on day 2 and 3.
Well, that is a lot of info. Enjoy tonight, and let's see if there's a couple of big trades that scramble everything and send all the predictions flying all over the place. A couple unpredictable teams moving up. Who knows, right?
Absolutely. Appreciate you for having me. Enjoy tonight. You gentlemen know where to find me.
Thank you, Justin. Justin Melo writes for Sports Illustrated, covers the NFL and the NFL Draft. DJ and PK, Matt Larkin is going to join us coming up at 8:30 from Daily Faceoff to talk NHL playoffs. He'll talk Mammoth and Golden Knights Game 3 at the Delta Center Friday night. He joins us at 8:30. Stay with us. Question today coming up at the top of the hour right here on The Zone.
This is Utah's best coverage of the Utes, Cougars, Jazz, and Mammoth. Here we go. From the guys who have been there for all the biggest moments in Utah sports history. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We were just talking NFL Draft, and we've had Evan Brennan on yesterday. We played that for you early this morning. He thinks 7 to 10 local guys have a chance to have their name called here over the next 3 days. And we know undrafted free agents can make it in the league. So as an event, the NFL Draft keeps getting bigger. Just these massive crowds. They don't even want to hold them in stadiums anymore, PK. The stadiums can't hold enough people. They want to draw 100, 150,000. So they find open spaces and parks and whatever and all that kind of stuff. Where does the NFL Draft fall on your must-see TV watching list? And Kyle says, it's our Super Bowl. I'm a Raider fan. I appreciate the sarcasm, Kyle. Well done.
Yeah, Raiders have been down for a while, man. It seems like a long, long time.
Yep. I think you get to the point where there's some owners who just can't figure it out, or owners who start to figure it out but just can't stay out of the way, and those teams are down a long time. The Raiders are on that list. The Jets are on that list. Yeah.
Well, that would be an easy thing to avoid then. That's not very hard.
The Bears might be figuring it out. I think ownership there has gotten in a way. The Lions certainly had that problem with the Ford family, but they got another Ford family member in charge, and maybe they've finally figured it out. So
the Ford family. All right.
Michelle, I watch closely in the first round. I pay attention during the second and third, and then I quit watching until Mr. Irrelevant. Go Utes.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to be watching all of the final days rounds. There's a lot of picks, a lot of players, and they just kind of buzz through them.
Yeah. A lot of names, a lot of schools, a lot of guys, and tend to just wait. And especially by Saturday, there's a weekend full of sports going on, and find out if the local guys have been picked and keep going.
But it's extremely important to the folks, to the teams, man. That's where you can really make some hay. Get some guys later in the draft who can play. I mean, they're always there. I just think about it, is they're there every single year.
Without question. It will happen. And if you get them and you get them on the cheap in a salary cap league, it's a massive advantage. Kevin, I'm not very into it this year. My interest would be higher if some Cougars were projected to go sooner or if my Niners had a top 10 pick.
Okay, well, I mean, if you got teams, I understand that.
Yeah.
I've really had an NFL team my whole life, which was odd because I had two within 30 miles. But nevertheless, I followed the Giants a lot when I was a kid. Still follow the NFC East. That was my division of youth because where I grew up, we weren't really focused on colleges. That's for I think from in the Northeast, maybe it's changed to an extent, but high school was huge. High school football. I mean, in the communities, people would come out. You'd get great crowds every high school game, and then nobody really talk about the colleges, but my gosh, the Giants. And then to a lesser extent the Jets, but certainly the Giants, if they did anything, it was a big, big deal. And so with the Cowboys being there and me as a youngster being super impressed by Roger Staubach and what he was about, and then Washington and Philly basically down the street, NFC East was where it was at for me.
Michael says, even though I have an NFL team, it's just not on my list of TV watching.
The good thing about it now is that you don't have to watch it. You follow it on your phone.
Yep.
And so you can get the picks. And if you're interested in, for many, many years, the Jazz were playing, maybe playing that very night, or playing a team, or not playing, but the teams that they could play in the second round or something, so you could watch that, pay attention to that. But now you can just check in and out. I will watch the first round. There's no question about it. But I won't be glued start to finish.
Right.
I just can't stand the commentary. Not that I can't stand it. It doesn't repulse me. But after a while, it just gets like background noise. I want to get on to the pick. I want to see, okay, who is the pick? And then I actually like the evaluation after as opposed to before.
I think many times the thing I've enjoyed most about the broadcast has been the crawl across the bottom of the screen. Because I'm watching something else, there's a commercial break, I can flick over, or if I got two screens going and I'm not paying attention, I can literally just look down at the thing and think, oh, yeah, I've seen those picks. Oh, here it comes, I didn't know that. Oh, there's number 9, number 10.
That's where the phone
and then you catch right up, and that's it. And it's weird that the ticker would be the most entertaining part. But right, when you're dipping in and out and you're watching something else, it's perfect. I'm certainly interested in what's going on, but when one thing happens every 10 to 15 minutes, and it may or may not be that interesting to me, I'm as shallow as everybody else. I know line play is where it's at, and that's important and all that, but I am really curious what's going to happen with Jeremiah Love. Is he so good the team that's already got a running back is going to draft him just because you just can't pass up on the talent?
But who has a running back?
The Giants have Scadaboo.
Is he really an everyday back? Every down back?
No, I get what you mean. Yeah.
And he's one for
he's
one
had injuries
in terms of an injury at the college level, and so physical. That the fact that they have Scadaboo doesn't deter me at all if I want whomever it might be. And the Notre Dame kid is this year, but just using them as examples. This is football. You can't have enough good players, and I don't know that any single draft is going to address every single need you have on your football team. I don't know that you go that way. There's other ways to address needs that you can do. And, Scadaboo, I think he was a 4th-round pick. I wouldn't – you said you were stunned. I don't think I've ever been stunned on any pick that has ever been made in the NFL because you need players across the board. I suppose the one would be quarterback because that's the one singular position where you want one guy to play. But every place else, no. You need as many guys as you could possibly get, and then you have to figure it all out and put it all together. It's an NFL roster is the ultimate puzzle.
Well, there's a lot to be said for having two guys. I mean, Seahawks just won the Super Bowl, and they had two good running backs, and one of them got hurt, and they rode the other guy to the Super Bowl. So that's a pretty recent example of why you should invest in a second running back.
If that individual is the guy you want.
Yes. And the assumption here is everybody wants Jeremiah Love, and he's not going to last very long at the top of the draft.
Yeah. So
there was a time when he was projected to fall to the Chiefs at 9, and I don't think anybody thinks he's going to be on the board at 9. If the Chiefs want him, they better move up.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing about it is I think that is much more doable than the NBA draft. If you covet somebody, that it's much easier because you just offer these people enough, and they'll say yes. Whereas in the NBA, I don't know that you can offer enough. And if you offer something that is enough, do they just say no because then all we're doing is just still running in place? We want whomever it is, and you want our best player or second best, and then you're kind of back right where you started from. Where in the NFL, you can do that because of the overall situation of the rosters and the needs and so forth. So if you like somebody that much, maybe with the exception of quarterback, but I certainly think that if the Chiefs wanted whomever it might be, seems to me they need to get more big play receivers.
Yes.
And that's been a long-standing thing for those guys.
I will be intrigued by what the Saints do also because of a guy who was on our show, Devon Vele, with the trade they made there. He became the number 2 receiver. I mean, Chris Olave is their star. And so are they going to go out and get Jordan Tyson? Do they want to add a receiver to that? Or is Vele, who came on our show every week and was a great interview, enjoyed having him on a lot. So I'm kind of curious what his future there is.
You've been reading Mel Kiper, haven't you?
Is that – no, actually.
Why not?
Why, did Mel say that?
That very thing.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't know that.
Well, not that I would prefer reading you over Mel Kiper any day.
Okay. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Take a break. We'll come back. The question of the day, getting a ton of reaction. What's he going to do? That's next. Stay with us.
Over 2 decades of sports radio dominance in Utah. My favorite. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. AJ Dybantsa went on social media yesterday and said, big news tomorrow, 11:45 a.m. ET. IG Live at 12 p.m. ET. That's it. That's all he'd say. 11:45 Eastern, 9:45. He's doing something for our show. Of course, he's got something at 10 a.m. The 10 a.m. show seems to get all the news, all the info. What could it be? What could it be, PK? So intriguing, such a tease. Bernie says 1 more year of college hoops. He's headed to the U.
That'd be awesome.
Thanks for the comedy, Bernie. We appreciate it.
That'd be a great story for us to talk about.
Lori said, good news, he's lowered his cholesterol.
Yeah, man. That's something I gotta work on.
Just had a friend telling me about that yesterday. Cholesterol at the forefront.
What happens if it's high?
you can end up with arteries getting narrow and restricted and, set yourself up for a stroke or a heart attack. I think that's what they worry about. They can test that now. They can tell you this artery is 70% open or, whatever the number is. But you would rather golf than go to the doctor and get a bunch of tests to find out about your arteries. So just, get your cholesterol down so you don't have to worry about it.
Well, I had a physical, and they said it's high. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a closed mind and closed arteries.
Yeah, I know. Case says no announcement needed if he's leaving. So he's staying. Or he's going to play for Pope at Kentucky. Laughing, crying emojis.
Pope at Kentucky, huh? So this John Goodman at Goodman Hoops, I don't know who he is. Is he serious? Ace Bailey, Ace Dybantsa told the Field of 68 there will be breaking news tomorrow at noon at the Davis School in Brockton, and that is in Massachusetts. Hearing UMass, Boston could be the destination for next season. It's got to be a joke, right?
I would think so.
Jeff Goodman at Goodman Hoops. He has like 340,000 followers. He's a basketball analyst, covers hoops at all levels, co-founder of Field of 68. That'd suck for him if they change expand the tournament, right? Can't be the co-founder of Field of 68 if it's more than that.
I think he's been around a long time. He's got a familiar face, but I don't know what he's done. I haven't searched. I've seen some of his posting. He was doing like podcasts after tournament games and that kind of stuff. He has a couple guys working with him. I've seen the stuff.
Yeah.
That would be stunning news if he did that.
Well, he didn't put his name in the transfer portal that we saw, right?
Right. Greg says if you look at the real analytics of everything, he would make more by staying at BYU and being a 4-year college player before jumping to the NBA. Obviously, that comes with a risk in the event he became injured. Supermax contract in the NBA would pay him regardless.
How does that work that he would – why would someone think he would make more in college?
I don't know because I don't think he would, and I don't think it would be close. You got NBA players. The goal now is to get to the NBA. For most guys, the goal now is to get to the NBA quickly, get through that rookie contract, and then start making the real money in your second and third deals.
Well, it would be for every guy. Why wouldn't it be for most guys?
Well, I think for some people it's just not realistic. They're trying to,
But that doesn't mean it's not their goal.
Sure. Yeah, you could argue that.
I still think I could play third base for the Dodgers if I could just get a shot.
You do not. And I think there's a lot of NBA guys who know, if I could just get in a rotation, that'd be great. But for Dybantsa, I mean, these guys are making, over the last decade, the max salaries have doubled. $30 million used to be the top, and now it's going to be, I think Steph Curry's going to break $60 million next year. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is projected, and somebody else too, is projected to be I think it's Tatum in Boston. They're going to have $70 million by the end of the decade. They're going to be making $70 million. His number keeps climbing. Why would you stay in college? Get into the pros, start your rookie contract, get through it, and then you can make the really big money.
I mean, what is really big money, though? $8 million isn't really big money?
It would be to all of us.
I mean, I that always baffled me, the really big money. It's all big money. It's all life-changing money. If you want to say bigger money, but the really big money? I mean, what is then? And then compared to whom? Like, these ex-players and all, like LeBron is still obviously a player, but, wanting to buy a team, well, they don't have near enough money to buy a team. So that to them, what is really big money?
You can find lists online of how much money these guys have made over their career. And obviously they paid a lot of taxes, and then they've invested and made whatever off of however they've invested their money. But just in terms of raw NBA salaries, there are guys over $500 million. But in an era when the Jazz just sold for, what was it, like $1.6 billion when Ryan bought them, and already the valuation is shot up, and the Padres just sold for $3.9 billion. It's great that you made $500 million, but you're still a long way away. If you can find one for sale, it's not like these teams are coming up for sale all the time.
Right, but I don't know that these players have burning desires to own NBA or professional franchises anyway. That just seems for the isolated few who have the publicity and the PR machine and the hype going around them at such a high level. So that who are those people? Jordan and LeBron, Magic, who else? I mean, they may be minority investors in some soccer team in some country.
Yeah, but even that, you hear
away.
like Tom Brady's buying 1% of whatever team. It's a place to park their wealth, and it's going to.
Yeah, right. But it's Tom Brady. That's my point. It's Tom Brady. It's Jordan. It's Magic. Right. It's LeBron.
But
it's
Brady
not Sam
and Magic,
Darnold.
Yeah, Magic and Brady, as big as they are, have been buying small minority shares. Jordan did buy the whole thing and try to. There's the one guy who really went out and did it,
and it didn't work.
Well. Yeah, didn't work. Yeah.
So I don't think that's what they're thinking. I in my mind, is Dybantsa thinking, man, I got to get to the NBA so I can get the really big money? I don't know that that's what the young man is thinking.
Well, we'll find out at 9:45.
But
see
no,
if he announces he's going pro, or see if he's announcing something else.
But that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to announce he's going to go pro. But that doesn't mean that I got to go now so I can get the really big money. This is the system that we have here. And so you got to abide by the system's rules, essentially, and this is what you do. I mean, what good is more college going to do for him? Oh, he can get more seasoning.
Yeah. He'll get more seasoning in the NBA.
Right, I know. So my point is, I don't think I got to get going so I can make the really big money. I'm not really sure that is the mindset of these youngsters. It's, I got to get going because I'm a professional basketball player, and this is what I do. I really think that if you just look at it that way, that the money will be there. And even if the money, the really big money, isn't there, more money than you ever dreamed of is there. So you're already okay. I mean, I know personally someone who was a journeyman in the NBA and has been able to live off that the whole time. Never really made the big money, but that's all relative. He made plenty of big money compared to everybody else, and he played 4 years. He could have come out early, but he wasn't really that much of a prospect. Although he was a first-round draft choice, he was indeed a first-round draft choice. So I think their mindset is I have to test myself as soon as I can at the highest level. And the system demands it. It's like the system basically demands for quarterbacks in high school that you leave the best time of your high school career, of high school life, not career, and go join some college team in January.
You don't get to coast through the spring semester and just prom and senior night and
your
barely
last
paying
run
attention
with your
in
buddies.
class.
I mean, you can still do prom. I mean, Zach Wilson was famous for doing that. But I'm just talking about the day-to-day laziness, and you know your life is about to change. Everything that you've had and the stability that you've had is going to be over in a matter of weeks or a couple of months. And that's sort of a freaky time. I can recall 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, people tubed the Salt River in the east of the Phoenix area, and that was basically a weekend thing. Well, in April, obviously the weather is good enough down there to be able to do it. And I can remember doing it with my buddies, or May. The season was over. Baseball season was over, so we probably got bounced in the playoffs, and I hit a solid 220, and knowing that my baseball days were over, so you sort of melancholy. So you go with a bunch of buddies, and none of us were good enough to go on, and so we tubed the Salt River in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and there's nobody there. And it was glorious, right? And you can't do that. The system, in a large part, especially if you're a quarterback, demands you go to that school because you got to get there, right? I mean, Isaac Wilson, not to pick on him, but didn't he do it? Where did that get you? You know? And now you're trying to win a backup job in Colorado. We demand these kids trade in their youth for bigger, and they all do it.
Accelerate.
Yeah.
Sooner, faster, achieve.
Right.
So if anyone's going to do something different, will it be Dybantsa? Because he already did something different going to BYU. And he didn't mind talking about it. He sat on the set with Stephen A. Smith and said, why don't you go to Duke? And, to Stephen A's point, I think Stephen A's kind of moved on. He's probably talking about the playoffs and the Knicks now. But it'd be like, well, Duke went to the Final Four and BYU went out in the first round. Why didn't he go to Duke? It's like, I get the line of questioning. But AJ wanted to do something different, so he did something different. I wonder if he'll want to do something different today. And, I did talk to a few people about this, and there's actually a few comments about this. Some people are wondering if he's using this. He's commercial endorsement guy. Is he doing this announcement and, some company he's working with, and so there's some commercial side to this of whatever he's doing today?
You talked to a few people?
Who don't know anything, just guessing. Oh. It didn't even occur to me. I thought he was going to declare pros. But fans are savvy. They see a lot of this stuff, and they're like, maybe he's doing something with one of the BYU people and promoting something for him. And he's got some deal he'll be working on when he's in the pros. He's still going to stay connected. I'm like, I guess well,
he's doing it in Massachusetts, not Provo.
Yeah, I don't think they knew that when they said that. But it could be whatever company,
Well, sure, there's going to be something tied to it. You're not simply going to have an announcement that says, I'm going to go pro.
Right.
When you're the projected number one pick.
Have a shoe or a sports drink or some other product on the table as you announce you're going pro.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, for sure. Especially since it doesn't really cost you anything to do it. Why not make easy money? Nothing better than making easy money, is there?
Sing it. There's got to be a song.
Well, there should be.
Feels like you're halfway to a couple different songs. You gotta mesh them together somehow.
Yeah.
Do a mashup.
I have no problem with that. Take advantage of what you can. The system will take advantage of you unless you take advantage of it. Right?
That's true.
Yeah.
The machine's going to keep grinding. So do you want to get something out of it, or you just want to watch the machine do its thing? Because the machine will keep doing its thing.
Yes. I read a story here a while back. You remember a guy named Junior Bridgman?
Sure.
And the business mogul that he became. Now, he wasn't a big-time player like a Magic.
No, but he was really good, or I wouldn't remember his name.
Right. He played in the NBA and a number of years. He's 71 years old. And he played for, I think, like 12 years. But all the stuff, I just called it up. Following his career, Bridgman owned hundreds of fast food restaurants, became a Coca-Cola bottler, and acquired Ebony and Jet magazines. Despite having never made more than $350,000 in his season, Bridgman's net worth is over $1.4 billion with a B. Way to go, Junior Bridgman.
Junior.
Yes. I would love to be Junior Bridgman III.
Slide into that cash.
This is awesome, man. He never made more than $350, which is outrageous money.
Which is a big number.
But, NBA-wise, and he took advantage of the system and now has a net worth of over $1 billion. This guy should be teaching courses everywhere. And the NBA should be holding him up. He should be doing seminars as much as possible. If I were the NBA, this is who you want to be. Junior Bridgman. Sure, we all want to be MJ. Great. But it's so rare that you're an NBA player and then trying to be MJ? That's next to impossible. But Junior Bridgman, if you make the NBA and you're basically, what would you say? He was the 8th pick, but I don't remember him being a big-time player. But he played a number of years and took that and go. And if Dybantsa can do that, great. Good on him, man. That's just awesome. That's what it's about. Use the system. Don't have it use you, because it'll eat you up and spit you out and go on to the next guy if you're not savvy. And we've heard about, I read something the other day about Antoine Walker lost most of his money as an NBA player. Doesn't that seem outrageous?
Yeah, it does. It's sad to hear that. It doesn't happen as much as it used to, but it still does happen.
Yeah.
I think that Junior Bridgman, for people, I think he was Jeff Hornacek-ish. He played more than a decade in the NBA. he scored. He didn't. I don't think he ever scored 20 points a game, and he played with bigger names and Marcus Johnson and Sidney Moncrief, and Jeff had more team success. I don't think Bridgman ever went that deep in the playoffs because he was with the Bucks and the Clippers.
83-84. He played 16 games
at the end of his career.
I don't know what year. I just know it was 83-84.
Yeah. I looked up his career stats. 11,000 points. He's over 10, but 20 is a number where you're like, wow, 20,000 points.
Oh, that's why I must have read about him, because he died a year ago.
Oh, there it is.
At age 7. I didn't realize he was deceased. He died in March of 25 at 71 years of age. That's probably where I read about him. Because I remember reading him and thinking, wow, this guy just blows me away of all the stuff he did. What a business mind he must have had, and how he got a jump start with a little bit of money. And if Dybantsa, if he's out there today and there's 2 or 3 advertisements there with him, great. Do it. Because if you don't do it, somebody else will, and take advantage of it. Because if you ended up like, let's say, a Greg Oden, and you're a high pick but had a couple injuries and couldn't get yourself healthy, they'll just cast you off like you're yesterday's news, right? We understand that.
That is the way it works.
Yeah.
Well, in an hour and 20 minutes, we will find out. We're going to take a break right now. Hour and 20 minutes, AJ Dybantsa will unleash whatever big news he has. Maybe multiple things. Maybe one thing. Maybe it's just straightforward. He's going to the NBA. We'll all find out together in an hour and 20 minutes. DJ and PK coming up next, the NHL playoffs. Joining us from the Daily Faceoff, Matt Larkin. Game 3 looms tomorrow night. We'll talk with him about that next. Stay with us.
Nobody brings you better coverage of the teams you're passionate about than these guys.
Try some more.
This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are joined now by Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff, covering the NHL. Matt, good morning.
Good morning. It must be an exciting one in your neck of the woods. Big game coming on Friday.
I would think the last 6 minutes of the second game wound people up who were already pretty wound up. So now it's 1-1. What did you learn from 2 games? What do you know about this series that you didn't know when it started?
I mean, so far I've seen a lot of what I expected to see. I had that series really close. I had it going 7 games. I think Utah and Vegas are very similar teams in terms of what they do well. They're both great at driving the play. They're both great defensively. I have Utah winning this series in 7 games, and now you have the split. You've got home ice advantage because of that split. So it's sort of it makes me sound cocky, but it's kind of playing out exactly as I expected so far.
Good. We like to hear that, and then we're glad we have you on. With that in mind, that would obviously mean that Vegas would win in Salt Lake, and then Salt Lake the Mammoth would have to go back to Vegas and win. And you see that, or I guess my question would be, why do you see that as doable?
I think, to me, when 2 teams are just so evenly matched, goaltending is the tiebreaker. And yes, I know Carter Hart was really hot down the stretch for Vegas, but Karel Vejmelka, to me, has been so consistent all year long. He led the Western Conference in wins. He's handled really high volume, and I think I trust him more right now over the course of a long series. And Carter Hart, he's been on fire, but he hasn't played a lot of hockey, of course, in the last few years. So I think Vejmelka's more built to last over the course of a series.
Obviously, the Mammoth had a few young guys who are just, Gunther and Cooley especially, who are just really arriving as they move to town from Phoenix. And Cooley seems to be backing it up he did have the injury as a bit of a setback this year, but he seems to be backing it up. And I have to say, there's almost some kind of stamp of approval in my mind that the league's giving him when a veteran player looks at him and says, I'm going to bleep and kill you at the end of the game. Like, what did he do that deserves the death penalty? It struck me as veteran guy realizes this guy's a handful, and let's see if we can intimidate him. And obviously the answer to that is no. He scored the game-winning goal in Game 2, but do you see that as kind of the league giving Cooley the stamp of approval? He's arrived.
I think so. I think it kind of backfired on Dowd in the sense of it's a sign that Cooley's getting under his skin and that he's effective, he's dangerous, and I think it kind of is a microcosm of how the season's gone. And Logan Cooley, of course, he did miss time, but I think especially as a goal scorer, he really surprised this year. We knew he was dynamic as a playmaker, but adding the goal scoring to his repertoire, I think now we know his ceiling is just as high as everyone hoped it would be when he was taken in the top 3 at the first round of the draft. And of course, Dylan Guenther, to me, has been really effective in this series. He made a big play on to help to set up the winning goal and scored 40 goals this season. He's dynamic, he's big, he's fast. And of course, Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, the guys on that line have had great years. They've been so reliable over the past several seasons. But I think the difference this year is the step forward that Cooley and Guenther have taken.
We saw in Game 1, and I'm reading Vegas papers. I know some of the guys down there, they're talking about it, that it was clear that the Golden Knights came out and were trying to send a message with the physicality and all this, that we're going to basically rough you young guys up and whatnot. What do you think of that strategy in terms of being correct or maybe backfiring and firing up and getting the attention a little quicker than might be expected of the younger Mammoth?
I think it makes sense that Vegas is going to try to do that because they're a veteran team. They have multiple players who have won the Stanley Cup in 2023. They're going to try to assert their dominance, maybe intimidate a lineup that has a lot of guys who've never played a playoff game before. But I think what they take for granted in that case is that Utah has plenty of players who are able to mix it up, whether it's Mackenzie Weegar, even Ian Cole's really experienced. He won Stanley Cups with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Lawson Krause is a big, strong guy. So is Jack McBain. And then, of course, Mikhail Sergachev can handle big minutes. He's a big guy. He's won Stanley Cups. Brandon Tanev's a really physical forward. So I think that Bill Armstrong has done a really good job building a team that isn't just skilled, but also capable of winning in multiple ways. And that includes if you want to have a really physical hockey game.
It also seems to me like a younger team with no playoff experience gets it as the series goes along, and you can get tougher and realize, hey, the checking's a big part of this. We got to be physical in the playoffs in a way that maybe the regular season doesn't demand it. But on the other hand, it looks like the faster, more athletic team is a Mammoth, and I don't know how Vegas is supposed to get faster, more athletic. And I get why they're lining guys, putting 3 guys on the blue line there because they can't give the Mammoth space. It seems like when the Mammoth get space and they start skating, they're just blowing by Vegas guys. Is that something we're going to see more of as the series goes along?
I think so, and I think it is one of the reasons why I picked Utah to win the series. I think, Vegas is still a good offensive team, and they were much better once John Tortorella took over in terms of the underlying play-driving numbers. They actually were tops in the league. But Utah, the fact you can spread your lines, you can have Keller and Schmaltz on one line, you can have Guenther and Cooley on another, and even the third line, you can have J.C. Peterka, who's dangerous as well. I just think there are so many dynamic groups that bring a lot of speed and skill, and it could be overwhelming for Vegas. It's still going to be close because Vegas does have excellent defensive forwards in terms of just the matchups, whether it's Mark Stone, Mitch Marner. Those are 2 of the best defensive forwards of this entire generation. So I don't think it's going to be dominant one way or another. Sense the way things have played out so far because Utah does have a lot of skill, a lot of speed, and they can overwhelm opponents.
Since you're picking the Mammoth to win in advance, who did you pick that they would be playing?
So if we look at that side of the bracket, that specific part of the bracket, which means that Utah will be playing the winner of Edmonton and Anaheim. And as I filled out my bracket, I think Utah beats either of those teams if it advances to round 2. So I actually have Utah going to the conference final in the West this year.
Oh, that's good for sports radio. Thank you.
We'll take it.
All right.
Now, when you throw that out there, do you hear any reaction from some of the people you work with, people who read you? What is the feedback? You're crazy. That's a bold pick. I see where you're going with that. These are all coin tosses. That pick is as good as any other one. What was the reaction?
I think it depends on who you talk to. So if you're more of a modern thinker and you like to study the analytics a little bit more, I think a lot of people in that camp have really liked Utah this season and labeled them as one of the sleepers to make a deep run. On the other side, if you're more interested in the intangibles and just the idea that the style of hockey is different in the playoffs and a lot of players are going to struggle to gain the new experience, then maybe I'm overreaching, expecting a relatively green team to go that far. So I think it depends on on the camps that you're involved in, and I could see it both ways for sure.
A lot of our listeners are new to this, right? And everybody loves a story. And so the Jazz are down their rebuild here that they've been going through. Looks like it's over, but nevertheless, they haven't had postseason in a number of years. And so the fresh story is the Mammoth, and they've been able to capture the attention. And now with their playoff, that we have some form of playoffs. It's in terms of in the spring, it's hockey now. And so there might be learning as we go. And we know in the NBA, they put a big premium on the home court, and Utah was tough to play. What level of emphasis or premium do you put on home ice advantage?
I think it depends on sports. So it's undoubtedly most prominent in basketball, and that's just something we all know historically, that it's most skewed in terms of home records being dominant. It still is an advantage in hockey for sure, and I think it's more pronounced in the playoffs when the games get more aggressive and physical and players feel that adrenaline. I think you really saw it. So I was in Buffalo for games 1 and 2. The Sabres make that comeback. You could feel them feeding off the momentum of the crowd as they fought back over that wild final 8 minutes in game 1. They were clearly being fed by the energy of the crowd. So I think it is an advantage, and I expect it's going to be significant for Utah. And I'm going to date myself here, but I still have memories of 97-98 NBA Finals watching Phil Jackson put the earplugs in, playing the Jazz, right, at Delta Center. That was a really rabid, loud building. I know those same fans technically have aged 30 years, almost 30 years since then, but I suspect they've passed down the same habits to their kids, and I'm expecting a really loud, raucous building for Game 1 and 2. Or Game 3 and 4, I should say.
Right, I got you.
One key to this series so far, and it's been a real problem for the Mammoth, is they're 0 for 5 on the power play. At the same time, Vegas is 2 for 5. Vegas with the empty netter and the 2 power plays, you can say a lot is resting on this. Do you think those numbers hold, or do they have to even out a little bit just by the nature of the sport? And if they do even out, is that a major problem for Vegas?
I do think it'll be a problem for Vegas, but I do think they also match what we saw in the regular season, right? Vegas had the number 6 power play in the NHL, 24.6%. Utah was down at 18th, 20%. So that was, on paper, one of the advantages that Vegas held over Utah going into the series. It's not necessarily going to be that skewed all series long, but I think it makes sense that so far we're seeing Vegas more effective on the power play. It's something that Utah, despite all their talent, they haven't quite figured that out yet. It's something they're going to have to work on, I think, over the next couple of years.
Since you've already said you've got the Mammoth winning a couple of series, how much of that is that you have a belief in the team, the organization, versus maybe it's just a bracket situation that they can take advantage of?
I think it's both. I think that Utah is a well-constructed team, and I think the proof of that is just the fact that I have them beating Vegas, because Vegas is a good team too. But I think also the other part of the bracket, Edmonton and Anaheim, are more flawed. So if Utah does get by Vegas, I actually think it's going to be an easier series in round 2. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's a cop-out answer, but I truly believe both. And then if you look more in the long term, I just think Utah is a franchise set up very well to contend for years to come, because you have more prospects on the way that are very high-end prospects, whether it's TJ Ginla, Caleb Denoyer. And not only does that mean there's help coming, it means that there's more flexibility to trade some prospects too if you have an extreme surplus. So I think this is just the beginning for what's going to be a long era of Utah being a contender.
That sounds very good in the long run. I think in the short run, people hearing this are like, oh, I get why they can beat Vegas and I get why they can beat Anaheim, but they had real problems with Edmonton. You think those could be overcome if it comes to that? I mean, there's no guarantee either team will be there, let alone both of them. But let's just, for sake of argument, say it's both there. They really struggled with Edmonton in the regular season.
They did, but if I remember correctly, they struggled with a healthier version of Edmonton. So right now we have Leon Draisaitl. He's back, but he's still not 100%. And then you have Connor McDavid, who tweaked his ankle last night. We think it's his ankle. He was not himself for the rest of that game, and we don't know whether that's going to hurt him for the rest of the playoffs, whether he's going to be able to shake it off. And that's scary for a team that's already notoriously top-heavy. They need both those players to be dominant. And I also think, just with all due respect to Connor Ingram, if you put those two teams up against each other, if it was a hypothetical series of Utah and Edmonton, again, the advantage in net goes to Utah with Van Elka. So I think this is, compared to the Oilers teams that made the Stanley Cup final the last couple of seasons, this version of the Oilers is much more flawed.
Matt, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on and talking a little playoff hockey with us.
Pleasure, guys, and I will be watching intently on Friday. It should be electric.
He's Matt Larkin. He's a managing editor and senior writer for the Daily Faceoff. And he got to be in that building in Buffalo for that great comeback. That had to be electric. We like stories. We like those moments, PK, and that was something. So
a lot of electricity then.
Good for him, right? All right, DJ and PK, we got to take a break. We will have more in the 9 o'clock hour. Cole Bagley, who covers the Mammoth for KSL, is going to join us coming up at 9:30. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Utah's best coverage of the Utes, Cougars, Jazz, and Mammoth. Here we go. From the guys who have been there for all the biggest moments in Utah sports history. You're listening to DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, reminder to join Scotty and the coach from 10 to 2 at Tim Dahle Nissan Southtown this Friday. 11155 South Jordan Gateway in South Jordan. Tim Dahle, home of the Forever Warranty. PK, the draft is tonight. There is hockey tomorrow night. What is the big story? The messy story's in the rearview mirror. It was fun. The place was packed, but Miami's better. There's a level, I think this applies to the Jazz as well, and Pablo Mastroeni has said this a couple times. He went half a day way down this road in the postgame. It's great to be good, but there's a whole other thing you have to do to be great. And I think we're seeing that in the NBA playoffs right now. There are teams that are good, and they're going to win a playoff series or two, but it's a pretty short list of teams that can be great and can win it all. And greatness, does rest on health, and Victor Wembanyama, man, it looks like San Antonio is one of those teams that could be great, and he goes face first into the floor, and now everybody holds their breath. When can he be back? So there's a little bit of good fortune mixed into it, but you can improve, and the Jazz have been bad. We expect them to be good next year, but it's a whole nother gear to get from good to great.
I don't think that's ever not been the case in the NBA, or to say it better, it's always been the case, or most always, which is sort of a contradiction there.
Okay, give me most always. That's the one that intrigues me most.
Well, it can happen.
You get between dynasties?
But that is the rarity, yes, the nature of this sport, and what we might very well see with the Mammoth is an opportunity to be really good in the manner that we saw with the Jazz. I mean, what did they make the playoffs? 18, 19 years in a row or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so that sucks for them. I guess you can say that they didn't win it all, but the fact that they were there year after year after year, as the time has gone on, my respect for that has grown immensely. And I think that's partly not anything that they did or didn't do that I recognize later. I think it's more about the league with the load management and all that stuff that has made me appreciate that run, that era, that tenure, which was just awesome that they were there, led by the statues, led by including Mark Eaton and Thurl and some other guys there across the time, that they brought it every single night virtually. And now we're already talking about, how many games is Markkanen going to play next year? Well, we never would have said, well, how many games are the Statues going to play next year? They're going to play 82. It's going to be the rarity. We expect them to play 82. If they didn't, that was the surprise. And even when Stockton went down, he came back, if I remember, quicker than we thought. And it was just a big breaking news story that he's ready to go. We, at least if I'm remembering correctly, we anticipated maybe a little longer, but he got back literally as soon as he could. And so as time's gone on, I've respected that greatly. But the NBA has consistently been about a handful of teams maybe that could win it all. So that's the reality of that league because of the two or three players that can be so dominant. And so we've had a number of what we would call dynasties, right? Maybe not in the form of the Celtics when it was a smaller league, But we've seen the Lakers, the Bulls, Pistons had a little bit of a run back there, and you can sneak in. I also think that before you're great, you need to be good. It's very rare that you're going to go from not the worst to first thing that we talk about. Those are more divisionals in the NFL where there's only 4 teams in a division, so it's easier to do that, and you get an injury or two, and it can decimate a team. And you can look at the Chiefs this year, how much of their slide was attributed to injury as opposed to, well, maybe they're aging out a little bit, and that happens, and it will happen, and they'll have to reload at some point, obviously, and maybe they're in the process of doing that. But from the Jazz perspective, the opportunity for them to be good next season, if you go big picture, could be good enough. Now, I got to see what that good looks like. Clearly, they're going to be better. We would all be shocked beyond belief if they weren't better, right? So we're going to put that on the shelf. That's a given. Now, what level of good can they be? Because you get to the first round and get smoked in 4 games. All right, that's an advancement from what they've been, but that may not be good enough. Whereas if they play, say they got in a 4-5 series next year and lost in 7 games, that's a big difference in getting smoked as an 8 seed. You see what I'm saying there? So what 100%. Level of good will they be? That's the intriguing prospect. And for the hockey team, we just had a national guy, Matt Larkin, come on. He's got him going to the conference final this year, and then he starts naming 2 or 3 of the prospects that we have heard of, and we anticipate them coming. That's sort of new. We haven't had that at the professional level, at the highest level here, because it's draft guys, trade for guys, sign guys, right? Not follow them through a minor league progression. RSL's had it to a degree. I understand that. But this one here, these high draft choices, and as they come aboard, that's going to be fun. Are we sitting on a Jazz-like run with the Mammoth?
No.
No?
I would always bet against.
Maybe not to that
runs.
degree. You don't. But if they go 8 to 10 years,
that would still be impressive.
Yeah,
this would be a good run. The 20-year run, just the further you get away from it, the more amazed you are. And since then, it's basically a coin flip on them going to the playoffs. They've gone 11 times, they've missed 12 times, which really does. And now it seems like they always need 3 or 4 years for a rebuild. And they had a run where they went 4 in a row and 5 out of 6. And then they had a 4-year rebuild, and they went 6 years in a row. But then they tore that down, and now we've had a 4-year rebuild. And how long will this launch them for? The goal was to not just open the championship window, but keep it open.
Who said that?
Jay-Z.
Well, if they tear this thing down in 4 years,
we're all going to be disappointed.
That's going to suck. It's going to wait a second. I didn't go through this to only have 4 years unless they won 3 titles.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if the peak were that good, then you would take it. I think that's why this draft lottery is so intriguing. Because if you get the top pick and you get AJ Dybantsa, well, then you can project, and who the heck knows? But you could project, well, Ace Bagley and AJ Dybantsa, they could build around these guys for a decade
There's no
plus,
question.
Right? And then the guys who are older, hey, you win with them now, but at some point you move on from them, you use the cap space, or you flip them, whether it's Jackson or whether it's Markkanen or whether it's somebody else. And you can look at that in the same way the Jazz had Stockton Malone.
Yeah, it's easier to build around those 2.
3 distinct groups.
And that's great because they fit the timeline because they were drafted in consecutive years and they didn't have the Carl was kind of a blowhard, but John was, I'll resign. I can remember going to a press conference when she resigned. And they asked him, well, they offered me the money. The money was good. This is not exactly the soup kitchen. He used that very phrase, the soup kitchen. And it was sort of a low-maintenance dude. Yeah, I'm going to sign here and I'm going to play here. It's as simple as that. Next question. And that was cool. And maybe we can have that here. Who knows? These kids have so many people in their ears, and maybe that's something, you wonder with Mitchell, what was his big deal? Why did he want out? What was so bad about it? To where I realized the times and the the nature of what was going on in the world as a young black man who grew up in extreme privilege, trying to find himself in that way, and how much did that factor into it? And if it had been another time where there was more harmony, maybe that doesn't happen. I would really like to know, what was the deal? And if I were the Jazz, what really was the issue or issues? Because then I would go about trying to correct those to make sure that that's not repeated for this younger. Even if they don't get Dybantsa, they get the second or third pick, sign me up. You're still going to get most likely a young African-American kid. And what can we do to make so you enjoy it here? Because we invest so much, and they care about that stuff. We used to hear about so much about Robin Hayward, right? And how happy she was, and she was so young at the time, and we had management tell us about her, and so that stuff matters. And so what rather than look at it, oh, Mitchell, he's this, he's that. No, what were the issues there, and what can we as an organization and a leadership committee group do to make it better for future guys when they come here? That's the way I would look at it, rather than just make it some big thing that, oh, screw him, blah, 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 blah. Nah, I'm not really into that. What can I do, or what can we do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
And that's certainly part of it, and that's the part that got the most discussion. But watching Danny Ainge's career, I just can't help but the part of it was he looked at it and thought, it's a good team, but the flaws are going to keep it from being a great team. You know, the two guys you're paying, one guy's undersized, and look at who Danny Ainge has built teams around. If at all possible, he is built around much bigger people. Now, they did ride, you could go to a conference final riding Isaiah Thomas, and he was a smaller guy, but they weren't going to win the title with him, and Ainge didn't resign him, and obviously there's an injury factored in there. But you look at the guys with Tatum and Brennan, go back to Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. I mean, he's built around bigger guys.
Right, but they traded those guys on their terms. They didn't really have the opportunity to completely trade Donovan Mitchell on their terms.
There were other things going on.
His terms.
But I wonder if deep down Danny Ainge just flat out wanted to trade him because he thought, let's get the most we can now. He doesn't really seem that interested in playing defense. He is undersized. His value is as high as it's ever going to be. Let's do it. Now, there were other things going on. It wasn't completely his terms, but I just wonder down deep, if you're right, if it had been a time of more harmony and maybe he's a little older and a little more mature, because, that's the other thing with the Hayward thing. I mean, we're talking about really young people, and maybe they would look at it differently 3, 4, 5 years later. Mm-hmm. That's an age, we can remember being that age. That's an age where you change pretty quick. So who's to say? So there was some of that stuff going on, but it's just, Ainge doesn't really build teams around a dominant defensive guy who has very little offer at the offensive end, and then you pay him top dollar, and an undersized guy who can score at an amazing rate but doesn't offer much at the defensive end of the floor. I think we're going to see them trying to build around a different type of player. I don't know that Danny Ainge ever fully bought in. They were good. There's no question they were good. But I think he doubted their ability to be great. And for multiple reasons, it was time to move on. So he did it.
I'd still rather move on completely with me in the driver's seat, not because I have to. Yeah. I have a timeline that I have to move him or else I get nothing for him. The league knew that. Yep,
that was absolutely a factor there. The clock was the 3 years of moving. And, Cleveland just bet that, we'll catch a break. And he probably doesn't want to be here. He'd much rather be in New York. But they did catch a break. New York had a pretty good team, and they were capped out, and he couldn't get
Yeah, but now I read that multiple places that they're going to trade him if he doesn't sign the extension. So here we are again.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, well, look at some of these guys like Durant and Harden, as good as they are, man. They're on their fifth team, and maybe Donovan Mitchell's going to be doing the same thing, It's just Magic and Bird playing for one team and Jordan playing for two, and we barely even count.
They're all-timers. Mitchell is very, very good, but he's not an all-timer at that level.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. More in a moment. And we've got the NFL Draft coming up tonight. We got Cole Bagley coming up to talk playoff hockey at 9:30. Stay with us.
Over 2 decades of sports radio dominance in Utah. My favorite. This is DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Got a question up on our Facebook page. Where's the NFL draft on your must-see TV watching? I'm super intrigued by the outcome of the first round, PK, but investing multiple hours consecutively in it, I just can't do it. But I know this first-round talent, and who are we kidding, the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th-round talent on Saturday, which I also can't sit still for, is going to have a major impact on these teams. Early this morning, we talked to NFL Draft, and it's always interesting to hear these guys. It seems like there's it's kind of a consensus. It's like the NBA Draft. The consensus forms, but as soon as one team does something, and maybe a team makes a trade, and that definitely scrambles everything, then it's on, and it gets pretty weird, and guys unexpectedly fall. So I guess that's the attraction to the people who do lock it down.
But I think you do lock it down.
You what?
Yeah, I think you do lock it down. You just don't lock it down every single second, but you constantly come back to it.
I do.
So that is locking it down.
If I drop in something once every hour, I don't feel like I locked it down.
But you're going to do far more once every hour.
That's every 4 picks. I will have some hour breaks. Off the top, I can watch.
No, you will not go from 7. What time does it start? 6? There's no way you'll go from 7 to 8 and not check in. No way. You won't. There's no way.
Oh, my God.
That will not happen.
Okay. I'll let you know as I check in.
You won't. There's no way you'll go a whole hour. And by that includes your phone, your computer, or however your iPad, however you get into it. It doesn't literally have to be on the television station at that moment.
If you add in the phone and the computer, yes.
That is
as far as
watching
the show, I could get hooked on another game, and all we have tonight is basketball, hockey, and baseball. So good luck finding something to do. There's plenty to do.
Oh, there's always plenty to do. That's life. Who sits there and says, "Man, I got 0 to do"? And that's going to happen occasionally, but in our business, if I'm KSL's management and I find out you don't check into the NFL draft for an hour, suspension.
How many games, boss?
You owe it to the people.
18 games. I'm not going to be eligible for all KSL awards at the end of the year.
There's no way. I can see second and third day. Especially on a Saturday, it's earlier in the day.
Yeah.
Things happen.
There's a lot more going on.
Friday night, we've got hockey.
6 o'clock start for the draft Mountain Time tonight, so the day pretty much clears up.
It's Thursday. There's a reason they don't put it on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. They put it on a Thursday for this very reason, I would think. You're the TV genius, not me. I've been fired more times. You have this long, distinguished career in TV, and yet I've been fired from TV more than you. I have. Don't give me this. What the freak is that?
You weren't fired last time your contract lapsed. It's different.
Was Bobby Hurley fired?
No, his contract lapsed. You told me. I tried to say he was fired.
Told me he was fired.
I tried to say it,
so
and you
I'm using your logic, not my logic. Your logic.
Your
and
logic.
Are the TV
you don't
genius,
get to borrow
not me.
my logic.
Yes, I do. You're smarter than me when it comes to television. You've told me that a million times. You said, "Shut up, son. Do what I tell you."
There have been a handful of times I've told you that.
Right,
but you can remember it because there's so many times I don't say it because it's not true. Just those rare occasions when it is true.
And I've never told you when it comes to television, "Shut up, son." I've been put in my place numerous times. I've been fired more times. 3
Friday
times.
and Saturday are the lowest viewing nights of the week.
Right, so they're doing it on Thursday. And we have an addiction here. So there is no way you're going 60 minutes without checking in. No way.
Now I'm going to go 62 minutes without checking in just so I can tell you I did it.
You're not going to. No, you will not. That's just not true at all. I don't buy it whatsoever. Because then when we get past 7, 8, 9, 10. Then when's Fano going to go? We've interviewed him. He's an electric personality.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously all the local kids we want to see do very well. And then over that, it's Lomu. He's leaving 2 years on the table because he redshirted his first year. And so that's somewhat unusual. And to have two guys from the same offensive line go in the first round, absolutely. We'll be paying attention to when's Jordan Tyson. He's not local, but we watched him play. He was a fun kid to watch play football, right? David Bagley will go way early, so we won't really be that'll take care of itself. There's so many stories out there. And then they'll inevitably or invariably be trades. And so what does that mean for just everything? It gets a little tedious because we don't know about the offensive linemen from Georgia, what have you. Whereas in the NBA, and maybe with the exception of some foreign kids, we've heard of these guys basically until almost virtually the entire first round. We understand that. And then plus it has a direct effect upon the Jazz potentially, and we don't have a local NFL football team here. But there's no way I can go an hour without complete lack of knowledge. I would think something might happen, and I gotta know about it. It just even if I didn't have this job, maybe if I didn't have this job, but most definitely with this job, the first round, no, it happens once a year, and I'm going to go an hour without, and I'm going to catch up. No, I don't buy it. And you're more of a nerd than I am.
This is an awesome rant. I'm enjoying this.
It's just no way. And I don't think if we put a poll out there, I think a large percentage of the audience would side with me, knowing what they know of you. That's the truth. Knowing what they know of you and who you look up the stupidest stuff because you're curious. You're always curious. And now you're telling me something that's live and is in real time. You're not curious? That just defies everything who you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No. Unless you had some legitimate reason.
I really don't have much going tonight, I don't think.
Right.
No, I don't think I have to do anything. I think I'll be channel surfing through, depending on how early I sell in front of the TV.
Of course you will.
That Yankee-Red Sox game starts early, and I tend to watch stuff like that out of habit. It's a rivalry. It's, even though the Red Sox seem like, what is their deal? Why are they a mess? I've read it blamed on private equity. I know we get to blame everything on private equity, but the Red Sox who just couldn't quite figure it out, and then they win a bunch of World Series, and now it's like they've lost everything.
Well, I think the lesson there is it's hard to win. We take winning for granted when you're in the middle of it. I'm sure Warriors people did a few years back, but the reality is it's hard to do, and it's hard to maintain. It's not something that comes easily. And I could argue that it's easier to lose than it is to win, or it's easier to screw something up than it is to make it better. You look at the Suns when Jeff Hornacek was there, our beloved Jeff Hornacek, 48 games, they don't make the playoffs, and they start making all these stupid trades, and they were all for the worst.
Yeah.
They had something, and they screwed it up. 48 wins. They don't make the playoff. 48 today? Oh, my gosh, you're in. I mean, the Warriors were, 5 games under 500 this year? And they got in the play-in anyway. And that the Suns' management couldn't have screwed it up even any worse than they did. And our guy had to take the fall for it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that they didn't learn their lesson, and a few years later, the Suns fans had to endure the exact same thing. They had it going even better, and they screwed it up again.
I think it was a different management.
It was, but the Suns, that's when the Suns
ownership.
fans had to sit through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Hornacek goes to New York, and they draft, I can't even remember the guy's name, some French dude, and he's over there saying, take Mitchell. Jeez.
Jeff with some bad luck.
Yeah.
Really bad luck.
Exactly.
That's why coaches are the way they are. 'Cause they have the title and they have the power, and yet there's so many things out of their control.
And nothing against this Daigneault guy for Oklahoma City, but he's a better coach and knows more about basketball than Jeff Hornacek. I'm not buying that.
Yeah.
But yet the circumstance, they make great moves. Not good moves, great moves. And they set themselves up to be in contention for, they already got one. Even if they only got one, that's great. But looks like they have a very good opportunity to get multiples because they set themselves up. That's really, really hard to do. Hopefully, Angels, they can do it here.
DJ and PK, when we come back, Cole Bagley joins us. He covers the Mammoth for KSL Sports. You see him on YouTube. You hear him on our show. You're going to hear him next. What is he expecting in Game 3 tomorrow night? Stay with us.
For all of you less motivated listeners, it's time for your 9 o'clock. Where the heck have you been headlines?
Where you at?
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We are brought to you in part by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. We're joined now by Cole Bagley. He covers the Utah Mammoth for KSL. You see him on YouTube. You hear him on all the shows throughout the week here on the Zone. Cole, good morning.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing well. 2 games in. What have you learned? What do you know? Opinions that have changed. Opinions that have been solidified. What's the headline? What's the big storyline?
Yeah, I think if Utah can win this series, not saying that they will, but I think what we saw in game 1 and 2 is if Utah can play their game, if they can utilize their speed, I just don't think that Vegas can skate with the Mammoths through 3 periods of play. And obviously they're 2 very different teams. There's the Knights are they're going to wear Utah down with their physicality, right? They're going to wear Utah down by extended ozone possessions and using body checks to move them off the puck and to create space in front of the net. Whereas Utah, I think what they did well in game 2 is not that they tried to play Vegas' style, but they combated the physicality to a really effective level, right? I mean, they out-hit the Knights 39-33. They didn't try to be anybody that they weren't, and then they utilized their speed to create off the rush to break down Vegas quickly, because what Vegas does defensively really well is they deny extended ozone possessions. They're able to use, again, their physicality to get bump guys off pucks to win battles and to break out really fast. Whereas, Utah in game 2, which is different than game 1, is I think they recognized that. They made the proper adjustments. They recognized, hey, we're probably not going to be able to fully possess the puck for a long amount of time. And so when we get in the offensive zone, we're going to have to move quickly. We're going to have to utilize our speed. And that's something that they do really well. And they obviously were able to win game 2 and even it up.
How much did game 2 and winning it just maybe remove any doubt that these guys can do it, and now there is more than just belief? There's actual factual evidence.
Yeah, I mean, when I talked to the guys after game 1, I don't think that it discouraged them, to be honest with you. I think, they still had a belief. I talked with a handful of players like Ian Cole and Kevin Stemmen and what have you, and, I just asked them, where do you feel like, you guys need to do a lot of things very differently, and it just was minor tweaks. It just was a couple of small things. I think they were able to do that in game 2, which probably, raised their belief, and instilled even more confidence in them. And, right now Utah's got all the momentum. They stole game 2. They evened up the series. Now it's a best of 5 with home ice advantage for the Mammoth. And, if they can win game 3, I think that this series, potentially, really starts to favor Utah.
If I break this down period by period, I can argue they've only lost 1 period, the 3rd period of game 1. And for the team that didn't have the playoff experience and was supposed to be trying to figure this out, it seems like a pretty strong message.
Yeah, I would say that they definitely lost the 3rd period in game 1, and then I would say that the 1st period of game 2 was probably their worst period of the series and one of their worst periods of the season. Vegas just kind of built on what they'd accomplished in game one during that third period going into the first period of game two, and Utah just looked. I mean, it looked like Vegas was going to run away with game two and take a 2-0 series. But, Utah, and I think that's where maybe some of that, inexperience kind of started to filter in. But then, what we're seeing from Dylan Guenther and Logan Cooley, you talk about the future and how bright the future is of this team, and that's still true, but it feels like that future is kind of right now. The fact that these guys are showing that their game is built for the playoffs. I mean, these are two young players that they've only played 2 playoff games, and I would argue they've been the 2 best players on the ice, between the 2 teams, especially Logan Cooley, who I believe can be the X factor for Utah. If he can continue to attack the net, utilize his speed, he's going to be the difference, between, whether or not Utah can really win this series. So, Utah's playing well. Vegas, if Vegas wants to stay in this series and they don't want to let it get away from them, they have to adjust. They've got to figure out ways to, maybe get back to how they played in those periods, right? In the third period in game one and in the first period in game two, or else I think Utah's just going to skate them right out of the building.
How about if Utah can limit turnovers, being loose with the puck? How much of a difference will that make? That's huge. I mean, that's everything that I think Utah needs to focus on defensively. And I was able to talk with Andre Tourny after the game, and I asked him, look, you obviously just won game 2, but how would you assess the puck management in this game? Is that an area that you want to see improved? And he said that's one of the biggest things that they need to work on going throughout the rest of the series, because that's what kept Vegas in the game. And that, Vegas is a good team. They, as Tourny put it, they have a say in what happens, and part of their game is to be fierce on the forecheck. That's what helped them win game 1, and that's what kept them in game 2. That second goal from Vegas came because they were asserting themselves on the forecheck. They forced Mikhail Sergachev to make a mistake. They pounced on it. They quickly entered the zone, and Utah got caught flat-footed, and suddenly, instead of a 2-1 game, it's 2-2. I think that was 62 seconds after Utah had scored. So, puck management is going to be big, and it's hard against a team like Vegas because they're so assertive. Every time that Utah's looking to clear the zone, there's a Golden Knight within a couple of feet who's ready to deliver a punishing hit and put Utah down on the ice or into the boards. And so I think for Utah it's again playing with speed. That's the biggest overlying factor for Utah to find success, not only in the offensive zone but in the defensive zone, to be aware of where Vegas is at all times, to be aware of where their outlet passes are. And then at the end of the day, if there's nothing there, you just got to flip it out. And I think that's where Sergachev made that mistake, is instead of elevating the puck, instead of just recognizing that the pass wasn't going to get there and sending it off the boards or elevating it, he kept it ice level. He kept it flat, and that's how Vegas picked it off and eventually scored. So puck management I think is going to be huge and is going to play a major factor in whether or not Utah can win this series.
Cole, you have been following the league longer and more closely than PK and I. We're still figuring stuff out here. But I see a few trends here, and I'm curious your reaction to these trends and which one you think is going to change most quickly. There are 3 trends that have all gone against the Mammoth, and yet the series is 1-1. If you told me these things were going to happen, I would tell you they're down 2-0. 1, Vegas is 2 for 5 on the power play. I mean, they were good on the power play, but 40%, come on, that can't be sustained, right? The second thing is the Mammoth are 0 for 5. Now, they weren't very good on the power play early in the year. They were very good late in the year, but 0 for 5, that's got to turn. And Clayton Keller, top 20 in the league. Actually, I think tied for 15th in points with 88. And he doesn't have a point yet. I mean, you tell me these 3 things. They're all true. I thought they'd be down 2-0. Which of those things is most likely to change? How many of them will change, and how big an impact will it have on the rest of the series?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if you look at those, overline, if you look at those statistics, I mean, if you hadn't watched those games, you probably would think that Utah would be down 2-0 because special teams is huge. I mean, a lot of guys talk about how, playoffs are determined by small moments. A lot of those small moments end up being power plays. And the fact that, Utah has struggled, it's not surprising necessarily. I mean, Utah for most of the season was one of the worst power plays in the National Hockey League, whereas Vegas has one of the best PKs in the entire National Hockey League. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that they've struggled there. And then in terms of, power play for Vegas, yeah, I mean, 40% obviously is productive, but I think what Utah did well, especially in game one, was limit power play opportunities. I mean, Vegas was just 1 for 1, right? I mean, you're not giving up 4 of 10. If you're giving up 4 of 10, yeah, you're definitely trailing in this series 2-0. So, that one might be a little bit misleading. And then as for Clayton Keller, playoffs is just a different game. If you look at Vegas, Jack Eichel and Mitch Marner haven't done anything, right? I mean, Jack Eichel, I think, was the first or second leading goal scorer amongst all Americans in the National Hockey League. I mean, he played a pivotal role in the United States winning gold over in Milan. And, I think he has maybe an assist. He hasn't been productive. And, same thing with Mitch Marner. I think he has 1 assist, and beyond that, he's been pretty invisible. Now, Mark Stone, the captain of the Knights, he's playing on their top line. He's been, pretty good. But for the most part, the top lines are just kind of canceling each other out. They're not doing much. And so, what it's required for both of these teams to get a win is to, are they winning the battles amongst, the deeper lines, right? I mean, game 2 was defined by Utah's second line playing lights out. I mean, Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley, even Kyle Yamamoto playing incredibly well, scoring 2 goals and leading the Mammoth to victory. Whereas in game 1, it was the Knights' fourth line. They dominated the fourth line battle. Nick Dowd scoring, that is not going to happen very often. And so that's, I think that's where you kind of have to look at is playoffs is a different game. Things are going to happen, and so other guys have to step up. And I think another thing to look at too is I think Karel Vejmelka has been spectacular through the first 2 games, and going into this series, I had talked about, I wrote this, I did this huge, deep dive analytical piece where, just looking at save percentages between both goalies and what was their save percentages and wins and victories and, what was how many goals did each team average in their wins as opposed to losses. What I was able to kind of calculate is if Karel Vejmelka can stay between 2.5 to 3 goals per game against and about a 900 save percentage, maybe a little bit less than that. Save percentage I think is a little bit misleading at times. They're going to have a chance to win this series, and so far, I mean, that's what he was able to do through these first 2 games. He's obviously Vegas scored 4 goals in game 1, but that was a little bit, there was an empty netter. Whereas in game 2, he only let in, only 2 goals, right? Utah wins 3-2. So, I think there's just so much that goes into playoff hockey where it's the same game, but it's different. And, I think if Utah can replicate how game 2 went as often as possible through however many games are going to be left in this series, I think they're going to come out on top.
Do you expect Vegas to continue in terms of physicality or to be more or less?
I think they need to be more. That's a big reason that they won game 1. I mean, in game 1, they had 51 hits to Utah's 31, I believe it was, so 20 more hits, and a lot of those were just pulverizing. I mean, Ian Cole got dropped twice. Alexander Kerfoot got thrown into the bench. Sean Dursey, got dropped twice as well. And so, you look at that result, and Utah just kind of got bullied in game 1. It was hard for them to sustain their style of play through all 3 periods. And, if you look at the way that game went, Utah started hot, but then kind of got worse as the game went on, whereas, Vegas came out a little bit flat, but they improved through all 3 periods, which is, why they dominated the third and ended up winning the game. You look at game 2, and it was the polar opposite. Utah kind of started slow, Vegas came out hot, and then Utah started to dominate Vegas with their speed because, they combated that physicality, and Vegas didn't really know how to play against it or to match it. So I would expect that Vegas maybe tries to replicate game 1 in terms of their physicality where, they're punishing Utah every single play. They're finishing checks. They're hounding them on the forecheck. They're creating turnovers because, in turn, that's what's going to help them find success.
We have heard Andre Tourny say pregame, postgame, day off, over and over. We have to get bodies in front of the net, and we got to get the puck in front of the net. And maybe some good things will happen. And sure enough, they've done that once in each game, twice in the series, and it's worked. There have been bodies in front of the net, the puck in front of the net, and it's gone in. It hasn't been pretty, but it counts the same as Dylan Guenther's one-timer. So what are the odds they will keep getting those breaks? Is that sustainable, these crazy bounces that have led to goals?
That's a good question. And it's hard to say, exactly how the puck's going to bounce, right? But, there's a saying in hockey where, if you put pucks on net, good things are going to happen. If you want to score goals, you got to go to the net. And, they've obviously had some really lucky bounces. There's been a few, right? Kevin Stenlund's goal was a lucky bounce. Mackenzie Weegar's goal was a lucky bounce. But, it takes those types of moments, as I was talking about earlier. I mean, the playoffs are defined by small moments. And, I think it helped Utah ease into their offense, especially in Game 2, where, they were not creating anything. I think they were outshot in the first period like 12-5. And then, they flipped that script on its head going into second and third period. And I think it's because they finally saw the puck go in the net. Didn't matter how it got there, but it crossed the line and it evened things up. And it kept them in a game in that first period that they really didn't belong in. And then they continued to crash. And, I asked Vitek Vanacek and Karel Vejmelka before the series started, how is playoff hockey different for goaltenders? And they both said it feels like there's suddenly more bodies on the ice than before. Guys are getting to the net more often. They're crashing harder. There's, more traffic, and you have to be aware of that. And that's been true. And I think that Utah has done, honestly, the better job of just getting pucks on net and crashing hard. I mean, that's how Mackenzie Weegar scored. That's how Logan Cooley scored the game winner. Dylan Guenther utilized his speed, went straight to the net, tried to put one home. It wasn't there. Logan Cooley crashes and he taps home, probably the easiest goal he's going to score these playoffs. So, yeah, you have to keep going there because if you go there, eventually you're going to score greasy goals. And I think in the playoffs, there's so much less space. Things are so much tighter. Those seams are clogged up. It's harder to generate goals like Dylan Guenther scored. Those one-timers are just not going to be there as often. And if they are, the goaltender has done his homework and he knows it's coming. Whereas if you just get pucks on net, you crash, you're going to score a lot of greasy goals. And so for Utah, they've got to just continue. That's how they have to utilize their speed, right? They're not going to necessarily body Vegas off the puck time and again, but if they can utilize their speed, get pucks on net and crash, really, really hard, I think they're going to beat Vegas to the puck more times than not and continue to score those types of goals.
Well, that game-winning goal was a product of speed and getting it on net, and it didn't feel as lucky, knocking in a rebound, a little different deal. And you still need the rebound. It's got to bounce your way. I get it. There's a little bit of luck, but it seemed like less, And a player like Cooley, who's pretty quick and pretty athletic, beat everybody to the puck.
Yep, exactly.
Well, Cole, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the game Friday night. We will talk to you again next week.
All right, thanks, fellas.
All right, there's Cole Bagley. DJ and PK, your feedback on today's show. Lots of people weighing in on tonight's NFL draft. We'll get to that next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
And now, enough of us. It's time to hear from you. From all your texts, tweets, and posts. This is the best feedback of the day.
Ooh, I was there. It's the best game of my life.
With DJ and PK on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK. Now, PK, I'm going to tell you something. I want you to roll out of your chair and hit the floor and get a concussion. You ready?
Okay,
Brace yourself.
yeah, go.
AJ Dybantsa had a big announcement at 9:45. And he's turning pro. There it is.
Which league?
MLB and NBA. Move over, Danny Ainge.
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah, Bo was the baseball football with Deion. That combo.
Yeah.
Bo was the highest level of the two sport guys. Deion got to a pretty good level.
Bo was an absolute BA, but he had the injuries,
Bo was
obviously.
Unreal. Stop running up the center field wall. You're just showing off now.
Bo was like Secretariat, man. Watching him run and his power was an absolute thing of beauty. And obviously the injuries got in the way, but at his best, my gosh.
Yep.
That was
awesome.
just, and he had that advertisement, be like Bo.
Bo Nose. Bo Nose.
Is that what it was? Bo Nose?
It
Yeah.
was Bo Nose. It was a good one.
Oh, for sure. What a stud.
All right, so there it is. AJ's going pro. There's the big news. He's
I
going to
kind
be
of
on
figured.
Instagram Live here in a couple
I didn't
minutes.
want to tweet it out. I didn't want the attention to be on me, but I kind of thought so. Sources were telling me.
It. Shams wanted the attention. He tweeted it out.
That's his job.
Declared.
Yeah, he gone, and now is he the number one pick?
I think he is. I think he should be, but you never really know. Let's see the draft order, and then we'll have a better idea. But, yeah, I would think so.
I wouldn't matter the draft order. This is the NBA. It stands for not for long if you don't draft right. Wait, that's the NFL.
It's another old reference. Look at you go. A little Jerry Glanville thrown in there.
Is that who said it?
Jerry Glanville was mic'd up, and NFL Films got him telling a referee, you know what NFL stands for? Not for long if you keep making calls like that. Good one.
We better be not for long here. I got the two guys standing, hovering over my shoulder. They want my seats.
What?
Oh, now
How
Scotty's
dare they try to intimidate you?
Scotty, he's just taking over. It's a new day, man. You talk about a midlife crisis averted. My goodness.
All right. On that note, people are looking ahead to the NFL draft tonight. We'll let that go for now. You can go to Twitter and see the reactions.
Next thing you know, Scotty's going to be eating a taco.
Scotty and the coach are coming up next right here on The Zone.